The forbidden podcast door has been kicked down. You all wanted him, and he has been kind enough to hang out for a little while tonight. This is a very special edition of the Don Tony Show. I am Don Tony, joined along with my very special guest.
Me!
Yeah, introduce yourself, guest.
I feel like we crossed the streams.
I know.
In the original Ghostbusters, you never crossed the streams, so this is a little weird.
It is. Jason Solomonster, what's going on, my brother?
Nothing much. Well, I feel like everything's actually going on right now, but I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. This is interesting because, I go back to the hotlines since the 90s. In fact, today's a very special day also that I didn't even realize until somebody brought it to my attention tonight. I never have guests on. And that actually, for those that are newer, going into like 2006, 2007, when the shows really started to get popularity, when I used to feud with a lot of shows at that time, they would have guests every week, Bischoff, Austin, and others. And it became a running thing on the show, like, okay, we can't break the streak. We can't have guests because everybody that tunes in, they're tuning in for us. So we can never have a guest. And people are like, when are you going to break that? When are you going to break that? Conan was a special situation. That was a life or death situation. But, the streak is officially broken tonight. And believe it or not, today happens to be the 25th anniversary of ECW invading New York City, Monday Night Raw. And that's a very special day for me because being a hardcore ECW fan, and that really kicked off my wrestling hotline. It was wanting to talk so much about ECW doing something with the WWF, and the rest was history. Do you remember that night when ECW invaded Raw?
I do. They invaded. It was the Grand Ballroom upstairs at the Manhattan Center. And, of course, I remember Sabu taking a tumble off of the giant R. Actually, that whole segment, I think, was just one long botch because he falls off the R. And then I remember somebody, I think, did a dive or was supposed to do a dive out onto him, and that looked a little wonky. It was like they were just trying to get so much stuff in. But I remember that and the little pull-apart with Jerry Lawler and Paul Heyman at the announcement.
Yes, ECW fans have jam-packed.
That's about
Yes, ECW fans have jam-packed the Manhattan Center. And what is this? There's a ring attendant.
Well, they like this guy.
Oh!
I think he was with our video.
Has been accepted. ECW is in the house.
I added a little bit just so we don't have any issues over here. So I'm learning that on the fly. But I tell you, my fondest memory from that night was not only ECW's invasion, but we had the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, make their return after a 4-year hiatus. And one more little clip from that night. Sunny, as beautiful as she looked at that time, having an arm wrestling match with Marlena. And all I remember outside of her ass, like squeezing out of this, it almost looked like aluminum foil, was this one fan sitting right behind Vince McMahon. Just listen closely and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Marlena, no! Oh, what? Can you...
Look, I think Marlena...
Oh, my God. I don't remember that.
Oh, my God.
Holy cow.
And I had to cut it off after a while. He's like, you effing bitch, you bitch. Oh, man. And Ken Shamrock. That was his debut that night, too.
It was. He was in the crowd. Now, I don't know if they had, they probably had officially signed him by that point because they trotted him out for WrestleMania the next month.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember him sitting in the crowd. I think he was being interviewed by Todd Pettengill.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember, was it Lawler who went over and was starting to talk some stuff to him? I think he maybe interrupted the interview or something. But Shamrock was like, he was sitting in the crowd like a fan.
Yeah, Lawler made a couple of insults to him, but I think it was Farouk that came around and started in with him a little bit because I know that happened near the main event. I think Farouk wrestled in the
Against
main
the
event.
Undertaker. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I remember that because it's funny you mentioned LOD coming back that night, the ECW stuff. I mean, that really was the stuff I think people remember about that night the most. But I think there was some kind of, I want to say there was an international tour, and they were shorthanded. And so there were a lot of guys there who weren't able to be on the show. So it was like Undertaker against Farouk. I think the main event sucked. I don't remember it being a good match. But the ECW stuff, yeah, I mean, that's classic stuff. And even as, and I know you were more at that time, tied in with ECW and you were doing bus trips and stuff like that. I was a casual viewer at best. I would try to catch it really late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning on MSG Network. And I knew what was going on. I knew the key faces.
It was surreal. It was surreal.
But even for someone like me, it was exciting, to see this little mini invasion happen in that building.
Let me ask you, by the way, I know you and we were talking about this before we went live. I mean, we just want to say right off the bat, our hearts and our prayers are with everybody in Ukraine, all those families, that the only crime that they have committed was just wanting to live life with their family and their friends. And it is terrible what's going on right now. I don't know what we can do. You know what I mean? That's the thing that bothers me more than anything. I almost feel cheap by just saying thoughts and prayers, because we really do see what's going on. And, it's much different from the 90s, the 80s, and the 70s, because everybody's got a camera phone now. And you're just seeing like innocent people with a phone trying to document. You see some of the crazy stuff going on over there. So, for anybody that, maybe a wrestling fan that has ties over there, maybe we could put a smile on your face for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's fans all over the world, and it's a shame what's going on through no fault of their own. Again, it's one of those weird things, and I have a couple of friends who are from there, so they're paying very close attention because they have grandparents and other extended family members who live there. I feel bad because, they're on pins and needles right now. This was only day one, so who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. It's kind of scary to think about, but like you said, I mean, all you can do is just try to do what you normally do and hope that anybody who's over there take their mind off it for a couple of hours. But unfortunately, it just is a pretty shitty situation, no matter which way you slice it.
Very shitty. Well, hopefully we could get everybody's mind off of that for a little bit. I guess that's the only thing we really can do right now. So let me ask you, and look, we have a few topics we're going to get into tonight. We're going to answer a couple of questions as well. We'll save some specific questions towards the end of the show because Solomonster's on rental, so we can't keep him all night long. But
I work by the hour.
Yeah, we're just going to have some casual combo. We'll get into like a little bit of AEW stuff in a few minutes, but a big story broke tonight. And it's the conversation all across the wrestling world. And for those that aren't aware, Cesaro, his contract with WWE is up, and he was negotiating a new deal with WWE, and apparently what he is looking for and what WWE is offering is very, very different numbers. So Cesaro now is officially a free agent. And his future with WWE is in very much doubt. So what are your thoughts on Cesaro possibly leaving? And if he does, where does he go?
Yeah, I think it's a similar thing to Cody Rhodes, where he could end up back in WWE, just like Cody could theoretically end up back in AEW, even though I don't think he will. Look, I think a lot of people would be in agreement that there have been various points over his 10 or 11 years. I mean, he's been in that company, I think, since 2011, where he was among the most underutilized talents on that entire roster. When he's in the ring, he can do incredible things. And there were a lot of missed opportunities with him, matches that they could have done, but they didn't. I was in the Superdome in New Orleans at WrestleMania when he body slammed Big Show out of the Battle Royal. Everybody was on their feet, and it felt like a real star-making moment for him. And I thought, okay, this is cool. And then the next night on Raw, Paul Heyman, they put the two of them together. I said, wow, they must really have a lot of faith in this guy. They must really have big plans for him. And they didn't. And that was very discouraging. And so I think that's kind of the story of his career in WWE, little glimmers of hope and then just great discouragement. I always think back to what Vince McMahon said on that podcast he did with Steve Austin when he was talking about Cesaro. And actually, Austin brought him up. Austin felt the same way. And I'll never forget, Vince sitting there going, well, maybe it's because he's Swiss. And that always rubbed me the wrong way. He talked about him not having charisma and stuff. Now, if you saw him on social media when he was more in his natural element, you wouldn't be saying something like that about Cesaro. The guy had charisma. He had personality. It's just that I don't think Vince McMahon ever believed in him enough in that role. It was always tag teams, Nakamura, Sheamus, Tyson Kidd. I mean, that was the story of his career. So I'm very excited at the prospect of him leaving because, look, he's not getting any younger. I think, was he 40, 41? I think he's early 40s.
Got to be right around that, yeah.
So he's at that point now where if he's going to have, one big singles run, now is the time for it. And I'll say the same thing I said, I think it was about a year and a half ago. Actually, it would have been early last year when he got that little mini push around WrestleMania time. I knew that it wasn't going to last. I told people, don't get your hopes up. A couple of months, maybe he'll get a match with Roman Reigns, but then he's going to be right back where he was, and that's exactly what happened. At the time, I said, I would be really excited to see him pop up in New Japan. Not even AEW. And now AEW, I mean, the roster is so much more bloated than it was a year ago. I still feel the same way. When you ask the question, like, where should he end up? Where could he end up? I think the thing that excites me the most is Cesaro in the G1.
Yes.
Or Cesaro locking up with some of those New Japan talents.
Yes.
I'm sure Tony Khan will want to pick up the phone and talk to him. I'm not so sure that's the best place for him to go right now. That's what excites me. Now he gets a chance to go out, hopefully, and show the world what he can do, and that he doesn't have to be a world champion, but he could be a player in that upper card mix.
It's interesting. Cesaro always, as far as the way WWE treated him, always gave me the same vibes as they did with Rusev. I mean, Rusev was organically getting himself over, and everybody with the Rusev Day and with the shirts and everything like that. And then that report comes out that Vince told Rusev, oh, no, they're not cheering you. They're actually like mocking you. And it almost seemed like, in my opinion, like Vince McMahon was trying to convince himself that, why he shouldn't make him go all the way to the top. And with Cesaro, you had Cesaro's section, and sure, one fan made up all the cards, but they didn't force every fan to pick it up and start chanting his name. The interesting thing about Vince saying that to Steve Austin is that interview, I believe, was in 2014. That was only 2 years after his debut, and that is 8 years ago. And yes, that's why I didn't say earlier on, should he go to AEW? Because, something that I've been talking about for a little while now, we know some contracts in AEW are not going to be renewed. The problem that I see is that when you see all the names that are likely not going to be renewed, they're not on TV right now. So even if they get rid of 30, 40 wrestlers, 95% of them are not on TV. So getting rid of them, all it does is liquefy elevation, and you're really not doing anything for your TV. I mean, we loved when Jay Lethal made his debut. You see how he's being used now. They think they could get away with 2-3 weeks of backstage interviews with Keith Lee, but he's not going to be in the ring. You put Cesaro in there. They just got Buddy Matthews. Like, he'll get one high-profile match. Everybody gets into it. And then for 2-3 weeks, you might see a dark match. You might see a Rampage match, an elevation match. And next thing you know, it's 2, 3, 4 months gone by, and it's like, okay, what's going on with him? So Cesaro, I always felt that WWE never wanted him to be a heavyweight champion. Like, there's some people that they hire and their goal is right to the top. I think they always looked at Cesaro and I always compared it to baseball, like a 5-tool player. like a baseball player who could play all positions in the outfield, that could play a little bit of infield. That's not going to be a full-time, everyday player, but they'll pick their spots.
No, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
The interesting thing is, what it seems like in WWE right now is you either bank big money or you don't. Like, I don't know how much of the middle ground is. I think Cesaro sees Kevin Owens getting paid big time, Sami Zayn, AJ Styles, and sure, they're much higher on the food chain than Cesaro goes. But it makes you wonder, how low did WWE offer this guy for him to basically say, no, thank you? I mean,
well, either that or who knows? I mean, look, maybe he had it in his head because he sees the landscape, he sees guys coming and going, and maybe he said, look, he had a number in mind. He says, I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to present them with this number, and if they say no, it might still be a pretty good number. I'm willing to bet it's a number I would gladly take. But even if it's still a good number,
right,
in his mind, maybe he said, look, if they don't accept me at that number, then they don't value me. I'm just going to walk away.
Right.
Because it's not going to be hard for me to find work. So who knows what was going through his head? I know he was on the Xavier Woods channel that they have, the gaming channel, and it's sad. A lot of those guys, Breeze and Adam Cole and now Cesaro, they're all gone. I think Woods is the last one left. Close the lights if you're the last one to leave. So I think it was probably a combination of things. When I heard last year that he had re-signed, that's why today I was surprised, because it was about a year ago that there were reports that he had just signed a new deal. And then he got that big push. So did he sign for a year? I mean, I'm sure that'll, come out in time.
Yeah.
But when I heard that he had re-signed, I was disappointed because I said, well, if he's happy, more power to him. That's the only thing that matters. If he's happy, then fine.
Right.
But he could be doing so much more. And I go back to 2014. That right there, I think, is an example of why people are so discouraged when they think back to his career, because he had a storyline. He had the alliance with Heyman. I remember at the time I was excited. I was mapping this whole thing out in my head, which was my own fault for getting my hopes up. But I thought, man, if they keep these two together long enough, because Heyman was with Lesnar at the time, you could build when eventually there's a split. The match I always wanted to see and I never got to see was Brock Lesnar and Cesaro. And I never had any illusions that Cesaro was going to win or win the championship from him. But I said, even if it was a Royal Rumble title match and he goes in there and he loses, he's got that freakish strength about him. I think just the sight of him throwing Brock around, that alone, I think, would open up eyes and get people to notice him and go, holy shit, I didn't know this guy could do that. They didn't even see enough in him to even consider it.
Yeah.
And you remember the way that whole alliance ended, how the whole Heyman partnership with Cesaro came to an end?
Yeah.
You remember how they ended that?
Sure.
Backstage segment, they're not together anymore.
Yeah, it's just a matter of fact.
It's like, well, they didn't even care enough to come up with a storyline explanation for it. And that's when I think I pretty much knew. I said they don't care about this guy. Like you said, good utility player off the bench, plug him in when you need him. The stuff I read where they had plans for him and they were very upset that apparently he's walking away. They didn't have plans for him. How many times over the years they have plans for him? I don't buy that for a second.
No.
So I think it's a good move for him. I think he's everyone's going to be after him. I mean, everybody is going to want to bring him in. And, he'll land somewhere, fairly big, I think. But I would love to see him, like I said, tackle New Japan first. Because AEW doesn't need him right now, and I fear that he'll be lost in the shuffle if he just goes over there.
Yeah. I tell you, I know a lot of eyes have drifted away from Ring of Honor in recent years. But, man, what a bad time to basically have, like, this much of a problem for Ring of Honor. Because when you think about a lot of the wrestlers that were released, I mean, even some that signed with AEW, I mean, if Ring of Honor was financially strong and had a little bit more of momentum and a following, you could see some of these wrestlers fitting like a glove over there and being showcased and being able to, and some people that work behind the scenes for various promotions will, in their mind, right the wrong. So Cesaro could end up being a heavyweight champion for another promotion if it fits and if it makes sense. I don't know if I want to see Cesaro back in WWE. Like if I found out in a couple of weeks, oh, they negotiated, they came to a number, and he's back. It's like, I guess we could close out with this. In hindsight, if he signed a 1-year deal last year, it almost feels like, okay, we're still in COVID. We don't have any other guys that we could really, really profile right now. We'll sign him for another year. We'll prove to him that he is an asset to the company. We'll give you the match with Roman Reigns. And literally, it almost felt like as soon as that match ended, all right, that's it. No more. Because he got jumped. Literally, he was an afterthought 10 seconds after that match was over. And it was like, okay, we gave him what he wanted. We gave what the net wanted, the loud internet wrestling community. And now he goes back into, helping others and filling time and being a utility player. And he doesn't have that many years left in the ring, as great as he still can go. Years just fly by. That Vince interview was 8 years ago. So before you know it, 8 years later, the guy's 50. So I'm with you. I like the G1 idea. I know a lot of people in the States still don't focus on that, but they would, I think, give him the opportunity to really show everyone, yeah, this is what WWE refused to let me do and how far they could let me go in favor of others. In 2014, CM Punk left. Daniel Bryan had injury problems. Brock Lesnar was part-time. Roman Reigns wasn't as big as he is now. I think Seth Rollins was probably the biggest star at that time. And Seth Rollins now I think has more worth than even back then, and they still would not push the trigger on Cesaro. I don't think they ever will.
No, that's why I have no interest in seeing him go back. I think it's a good move, and I'm happy to see it. I think it's long overdue. Hopefully for him, it's not too late.
Yeah.
I think his problem is he kind of fell into the Dolph Ziggler role, where they get used to having him around, and he's a talented guy. Nobody is denying that, but he's just sort of there, and he's never going to be focused on in any kind of meaningful way. And so if you have a company that doesn't fully appreciate what you bring to the table, look, he said he was upset that he wasn't even in the Royal Rumble match. I think he was asked about it on social media. He goes, yeah, he was disappointed. They had Bad Bunny in there. They had Shane McMahon huffing and puffing in the Royal Rumble. Yeah, I get it. They're names, but they couldn't even find a slot for him. Yeah. That right there tells you, what they think. Now, maybe that had to do with him not re-signing. Maybe they haven't been featuring him lately because they wanted him to sign the contract, and he said no. But, I mean, even you go back to the fall, it's not like they were doing much with him. So I think it's a great move, and I'm very excited to see where he lands. Maybe we'll get him in House of Glory. I'd love to bring him in for a match.
Oh, I'm sure he would love it. He seems like a guy that's the thing. He seems like a guy that would be reasonable.
Yeah, I think so. I think he loves wrestling. I don't get the sense that he's just in it for the money. I'm sure he wants to get paid, and I don't blame him. Everybody else is getting paid, so why not him?
Yeah.
But I think he seems like someone who's probably pretty excited to get out there and get back to business and show people what he can do.
Absolutely. We wish him nothing but the best. Nothing but the best. And thank you for about 10 years. 10 years of entertainment on TV. I mean, we saw him in Ring of Honor and other places, but as far as WWE, should have gone more.
When he had the hair back in Ring of Honor?
Absolutely. And he had Oksana in the beginning.
That's right.
Teddy Long somewhere is happy right now.
Well, he had the Ridge Holland gimmick at first when he came in. He was the rugby player who was expelled from the league for being too violent. They had to give him that stupid rugby gimmick. But I will say real quick, some of my fondest memories of him, besides the WrestleMania 30 moment, are the matches with Sami Zayn and the matches he was having in NXT back in 2013, 2014. Yes. Tremendous stuff.
Yeah. Tell you, I'm a little surprised they didn't even consider maybe having him do a little bit of NXT. It almost feels like Ciampa might be replacing Cesaro as that older guy that, can still go and everything. It almost feels, but I hope we see him somewhere and being used the right way, but we'll see what happens. Jeff Hardy was in the news. We brushed on it yesterday. I saw the clip, and today Jeff Hardy backtracked a little bit And it makes sense because he's still under a 90-day no-compete with WWE, so he doesn't want to have any issues with WWE. As angry as he is at WWE, but he went on there was a meet and greet. You know, Jeff does these music deals now, and he does meet and greets. So I'm going to name drop this kid because I think it's a pretty cool story. His name is Jared Myers, longtime fan. And he got the opportunity to talk to Jeff Hardy for about 10 minutes. And it's loud. You really can't hear all that much. And during the conversation, Jeff Hardy says to this kid, I'm going to AEW. And I'm very excited. And, you know, when you first heard it, and this is a kid that has a YouTube channel with 350 subscribers. And Jeff, just regular fan, yeah, breaking a big news story. And so today he goes on social media, Jeff Hardy, and he's like, look, you know, I nothing is official. You know, I set a goal for myself and I'm achieving it. Don't get excited. And I think that was just damage control since he's on the 90-day no compete. But, you know,
well, he could have just said that he was looking forward to attending his first AEW event as a fan. You know, he's going to be going to one of the tapings coming up.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, yesterday NXT rating was delayed. We got it today. It was 612,000 viewers, about 17% increase from last week. Yes, it was on Sci-Fi, but 612, I think, for the current NXT is a pretty decent number. AEW Dynamite rebounded from last week. No surprises, no teases of Forbidden Door. It was a straight up, you know, regular card. We know that something is brewing behind the scenes with AEW, but it wasn't, you know, advertised for yesterday. They did 1,010,000 as far as viewership. That is up 16%. The big buzz coming out of yesterday, and I know of all the topics, this was the one I think everybody wanted us to talk about, besides, you know, a little bit of our history, which we'll get into later. But, you know, MJF cut a very, I would call, controversial promo yesterday. I'm a little confused, people considering calling it a babyface promo. But you come from my neck of the woods, and MJF is Jewish, and MJF pretty much accusing the Plainview High School football team of being anti-Semitic. What's your take on what's going on today? Because you have Meltzer in a lot of places saying, you know, one of the greatest promos in recent memory. And, you know, like his mother writes on social media, I'm proud of you, son. And the stories that he told, you know, I actually got, and it's floating around social media. These are the screenshots. Actually, this might be a little bit better. This is a screenshot of a post that he did, I believe, on Facebook many years ago. And this matches the story he told yesterday. And, you know, what I wanted to ask you is, you know, this obviously goes way beyond pro wrestling. Am I the only one that thinks that this is extremely exaggerated, that MJF is not turning babyface, that this is a swerve to basically let CM Punk let his guard down? Because I think next week, this guy either claims it's a lie, even if a lot of it is not, and I think this is designed to make it one of the biggest swerves. Maybe even compare it to Mark Henry when we thought he was going to retire. Like when he swerved Cena, people were just losing their minds. He had a lot of gas left in the tank,
DT. He got a lot of gas left in the tank. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying he's going to retire, but, you know, like an ultimate swerve. You know, what do you think about this promo? You think this leads to an absolute swerve next week? And if not, do you think he almost has to? Because imagine what that school feels like right now. Imagine what some of the coaches, if they're still in this profession, must feel like now. What if people really take this over the top and try to get a yearbook? I know it sounds crazy, but there are so many loonies out there that they start, you know, really turning this to a really controversial anti-Semitic story. What do you think?
I've heard him tell the story before, so I believe the story is probably 100% true because he told it once before in an MLW promo. He's done media stuff over the years where he's brought this similar story. Some of the details change after that, I think in the MLW promo. But so I 100% could believe that these are things that he went through. Look, he was crying in the ring. His eyes were all red. He was crying. I think he was probably thinking back to that and saying, all right, I got to get myself in that mindset again. Yeah. And I don't doubt that he's probably run into anti-Semitism in his life. And he's, kind of playing it up here in the promo. So I thought it was a great promo. But what impressed me the most was that here he is in this promo pouring his heart and soul out, and the crowd is still booing him, and they don't know what to make of it. And the reason they don't know what to make of it is because he's such an asshole. He's such a great heel. I mean, you don't have people who commit to it these days the way that he does, right? That's something you saw more of 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
How many guys on one hand can you really count who commit to the role the way that he does? You could maybe you could find a couple of others. You'd probably still have fingers left over.
Yeah.
So that's what impressed me the most about the promo. I think you're dead on. I said it last night in my review. I think we have 1 week, one more Dynamite left until Revolution. And so I think that's where we find out, he's going to come out. I don't know how they're going to do it, if it'll be an attack on Punk or whatever, but he'll end up laughing in his face and saying, he's playing mind games with him. He's trying to get in the guy's head before their match at the pay-per-view. Doesn't mean that the story he told is false, but I agree with you. It's going to be built up as a swerve. He's not going babyface. I made the comment. I said it also proves that one day I think he'll be an incredible babyface, but that day should not be for a very long time. I think it would be insane to even think about turning him in the next year, because I think he'll be a great heel champion in AEW. I would love to see him be the one to take that title off Hangman Page when the time is right. But no, I think it was a great promo. I didn't have any issue with him bringing up some of those things. I mean, I wasn't really thinking along the lines of, the crazy kooky people looking up yearbook photos and trying to figure out who it was. But the whole thing with the roll of quarters and stuff, he's told this before. It's not like it was something that he was revealing for the first time. And look, for what he's going for, it kind of makes sense when he turns around next week and says, you're so gullible. And then everybody just turns around and says, God, what a dick.
Yeah.
Because that's who he is.
We need that soundbite from Jim Ross. I know Jim Ross is a little past his prime.
So many of them.
Yeah, but, I was thinking about when Vince McMahon was revealed as the higher power. And all I remember from that was when you heard Jim Ross say, son of a bitch. You need he's got to really pump one of those out. If MJF on TV swerves everyone, there's got to be anger, and he's got to be the one. Not Tony Schiavone, not Excalibur. We need Jim Ross to put one more real frustration, you son of a bitch, just soundbite, because it will go perfect with that. But I think the only way that MJF really swerves, since the story is pretty much true, is he's going to have to come across that shit don't bother me anymore. Look where I am now. You think I care about those people? Those people made me stronger. Throw more quarters. And it might get scary because then you might start seeing people throwing legit quarters at him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
I was thinking the same thing last night. I go, you got to be careful. You're opening up that Pandora's box here because people will not. I don't think people will hesitate to start, throwing shit at him if that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you're right, and you're going into this dog collar match, and he's clearly the heel going into this match, and he's going to be the heel at Revolution. So there has to be another piece to this, and I think that's what we get on the show next week. I don't think they want any kind of ambiguity going into the match, because Punk had this look on his face like, wait a minute, are you shitting me, or are you telling the truth here? Almost like he had sympathy for the guy.
Yeah.
You can't allow that to go carry you into the pay-per-view. There's got to be something that happens between now and then that reminds you of why you want to see this guy get his ass kicked. I think that comes next week on Dynamite.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And again, I think, little by little, I don't know how you feel about these Forbidden Door things, but I've been saying lately that it seems like Tony Khan it many times gets that urge to treat AEW like a Cracker Jack box. Because we all love surprises. When we were kids, you loved to buy a cereal box to get the toy out of it. You buy a Cracker Jack box, you don't know what toy you're going to get out. You open a pack of cards, you don't know if you're going to get an insert or an autograph. You get gifts at Christmas or your birthday, surprises. So we all love surprises. But, does it have to be this surprise heavy and this sign heavy just to get 1 million viewers? Because we found out today, Brian Cage has told various people that AEW is going to renew his contract, extended for another year. And, I look at his usage in AEW, and I don't think this is a case where they're like just putting off his push and saying, just be patient, because there's so many people ahead of him. Then there's other people they could bring in that would leapfrog him. Do you think that Brian Cage is staying with AEW because, one, WWE probably has expressed no interest in him for various reasons, and number two, because he could still work other places?
I didn't get the sense that it was his choice. I mean, my reading of it is that his option got picked up, I think, for another year, and he himself was supposedly surprised. So if that's the case, I think he was probably expecting to just have his contract end, and then he would figure out what his next move is going to be. I don't think Tony Khan. I don't see why Tony Khan would care if WWE had no interest in him. That's not Tony Khan's concern. Yeah, look, I can't say for sure. I've heard, rumors maybe he wasn't, vaccinated, and that could have something to do with why he wasn't being used, because that could be an issue when you run certain venues. And I don't know what his beliefs are. Could that have played a role in it? Possibly, because it's been baffling to me. They literally, he's coming to the building, I think, on most weeks. He's just not being used, not even on Dark. I don't remember the last real meaningful match that he had. And one thing that's changed, if you go back to when he was really, he was with Taz still, and he had some big matches, he was one of the few big guys on the roster. It was like him and Lance Archer, and that was it. And now they've brought in others, whether it's they've built up Powerhouse Hobbs, they've got, Archer still around, but they have Keith Lee now. So he's not the only kind of physically bigger guy on the roster, which I think, if anything, just gives him more people to work with. It's as good of an explanation as any. Again, I don't know what his personal beliefs are. I don't really care, but trying to figure out what is going on with him. Look, when Melissa Santos came out in that interview and she made those comments, I can't imagine that really ingratiated him to Tony Khan. That probably didn't help his cause. So I was surprised to find out that it got rolled over. Maybe something changed, and maybe they are going to start doing something with him. Why would they roll him over if he's just going to sit in the back and collect a paycheck? It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
See, that's what I was thinking. Tony Khan, when you think of what happened with Big Swall and you see what happened with Leo Rush and a few others, I get the impression that if Brian Cage just wanted out, and especially with what Melissa Santos had said also, I would think that Tony Khan probably would just graciously say, okay, you want out? No problem. We'll let you out at the end of this contract. I don't see Tony Khan as one that if you have someone that you're not using and they're not happy and their spouse has also been very vocal about it, and you got a lot of fans all over the net saying, why aren't you using this guy? I would think Tony Khan would probably look best by letting him out of his deal or not renewing it. Renewing it another year, I just hope we don't start getting this impression that Tony Khan is rolling over contracts because the amount of money that they pay is so small, because they're not being used, because they could work elsewhere, that he's rolling contracts over so people don't jump to WWE. I don't think that's the case with Brian Cage, but I hope down the line, because that WCW fell into that trap where they would just sign and keep people under contract just so they wouldn't jump. But
they signed Randy Savage's brother. I don't think he wrestled a single match. I think he got like a $250,000 a year contract. How come I can't have one of those contracts?
I know.
Just to sit at home and do nothing.
We'll see. We'll see.
You know what, though? The worst thing they did to him, besides, I guess, take him off TV, is when they split him away from Team Taz. The one thing I will say about Brian Cage, look, he's talented. He can do things that a guy of his size, it's impressive that he can do, but he can't cut a promo. And so I think he needs somebody with him to do the talking for him. He's not very good at it. And he had somebody, and then they broke him away from Team Taz. And they had no plan for him. They didn't put him with somebody else. So if they were going to start to phase him back into storylines on TV, maybe as a heel or as a babyface, but I think you got to put him with somebody. It's not his strong suit at all. He had somebody, they took Taz away from him, so if they are going to bring him back, I think that's number one that they have to do with him. I'm very curious to see if he does get brought back. Maybe Tony Khan looks at it as a challenge. He's got to see all the comments. I mean, he wrestled the match. Was it against Will Ospreay? This is a few weeks ago. And I think it was Ospreay after the match got on the mic and said, this guy should be on TV. This guy should be wrestling on television.
I think it was against Will Ospreay, yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. So, Tony Khan, who's always on, he's probably on Twitter right now, surfing around, seeing what people are talking about because he's a fan and he's admitted that he does that kind of thing. He knows that people are asking this question. And I don't know that he's ever been asked about it. He hasn't commented on it. There's got to be a reason why.
Yeah.
And if they rolled him over, whatever that issue is or whatever that issue was, or if he had heat or whatever it might be, maybe now it's taken care of, maybe it's settled down, and maybe we'll start to see him pop back up on TV.
Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe put Dan Lambert with him.
You could. Yeah, you could. I think my suggestion at the time when she made the comments was, I don't know if she's looking for a job, and again, I'm sure Tony Khan wasn't happy about the comments, but shit, put Melissa Santos with him. Put them together as a package deal, and she could do the talking for him and manage him on TV. I just think he needs somebody to handle that for him, and then he can handle his business in the ring.
I agree. If they do come out with these trios titles, maybe you add one additional I mean, it's interesting that Lambert is like the default manager to talk about outside of Taz. I mean, I don't see it with Alex Abrahantes. I mean, he's pretty much, I think, more because of, speaking English better than, the Ray Phoenix and Penta. But,
they're starting to do more. They're starting to do more with like Mark Sterling, although he's just with Jade right now. I mean, you could put more people with him maybe. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Arn Anderson, he lost his guy, right? Cody's gone. I don't know what he's going to do. You got Tully. Tully is the closest thing, I think, to, kind of like an old school manager. Taz doesn't really manage, if you think about it. I mean, he's got Team Taz, but he's usually sitting up, on Rampage doing commentary, rooting on his boys. He's not really a manager. So, Vicky Guerrero, they don't do much with her. Andrade has Jose. I feel like they have all these managers, but very few managers.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's weird.
No, it does make total sense. Sure.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah. We're going to answer your questions in a couple of minutes. We got a couple of topics to get into still. We're definitely going to, because a lot of you wanted us to speak about what Booker T said about Brock Lesnar. But before that, I know this is an interesting story floating around. We don't know if it's business or pleasure or both. But two very interesting things came out regarding Ric Flair. First off, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, it's Rick being Rick, but, we found out that the whole wedding that they did for him and Wendy Barlow was just a ceremony. They were never actually married. And I thought back to the ceremony, and it was, very, small and conservative, but it was still, they went over and beyond. They were never married. That pretty much was a lie all this time. And I found it a little weird when him and Wendy broke up, that he was upset that nobody in WWE contacted him. And I'm thinking to myself now, I'm like, because you fucking lied about your marriage. Like this, you don't do that when you're 70. Like when I was 16, I pretended like I had a girlfriend. You know what I mean? But you're in 70s.
You don't do that when you're 30. You don't do that when you're 30. Lie about a marriage. Let me say something here on this, because I talked about this on my podcast. I feel like it's like the weekly Ric Flair segment I'm going to have to start doing, where he says stupid shit on his podcast.
Yeah.
So I heard what he said, and I actually listened to the audio. Well, I watched the video. And he was talking about how Charles Barkley reached out to him, and all these celebrities. Kid Rock, I think he said, reached out to him to check on him and make sure he was doing okay after his breakup. And what got me is he goes, nobody from WWE called me, which is, I laughed. I said, oh, your own daughter didn't call you? But he says nobody from WWE called him. And then he made the comment, he goes, the most insensitive company in the world. That's what he called them. He said they're the most insensitive company in the world. Why? Because nobody picked up the phone to call him or to text him to find out, hey, Nate, how you doing after your 5th or 6th or 7th relationship that's gone sour here? But here's a guy, and this was what kind of stuck in my craw. You know for a fact that if WWE picked up the phone and they called Ric Flair and said, hey, Nate, we got a contract for you. We have an idea for you. We want to bring you back in. Man, he would be there so fast. You'd see a plume of fucking smoke behind him. He couldn't get there fast enough, right? As fast as his feet could carry him to the building. This is a guy who, in his book and in interviews, has talked about Vince McMahon loaning him hundreds of thousands of dollars to bail him out of IRS debt because he couldn't pay his taxes. This is a guy who told the story that when his son died at the funeral, the casket was open. He took his Hall of Fame ring and he put it on his son's finger and then they closed the casket. And then sometime later, whatever it was, weeks or months later, he's down at the PC at NXT, and Triple H calls him aside into his office, and he presents him with a brand new Hall of Fame ring that has his son Reed's name inscribed on it. And now he's going on his podcast, and because nobody called him and reached out to him to see, oh, Nate, how you doing? The most insensitive company in the world. The problem with Ric Flair, he's very much, and I know people like this. First of all, he never grew up. I think we all know that just based on how he's behaved over the years. He's a 72-year-old. Is he 72 or 74? I think he's 72. But he's like a 20-year-old in the body of a 72-year-old. He's very emotionally immature. He's very sensitive. If you look at him the wrong way, he'll start crying. But the problem with Ric Flair is he's very much a what have you done for me lately kind of person. And if you have not done something for him, he's very transactional, I feel like. And if you haven't done something for him recently, he'll turn on you. All of a sudden, WWE is the most... We could talk about how insensitive a company WWE is, but not because they didn't text Ric Flair. So that's what kind of pissed me off when I heard him make that comment. I said, of all the people who can make that comment, you are not one of them. They have treated him far better than they have treated a lot of other people. So that's my piece on Ric Flair.
Who would win in a race between him and superstar Billy Graham? Running back to WWE. Those two, I think, should get on the phone with each other because it reminds me of Billy Graham.
Do a podcast together. Yeah.
Oh my God. Speaking of, we took like a half a dozen questions in advance. We chose some that we thought everybody would enjoy. And one question that came in from Strange Vision, if WWE ever did a season 2 of Legends House, who would you like to see in that house? And honestly, I think superstar Billy Graham and Ric Flair, I think would be pretty interesting to be in that Legends House. Who would you put in that house?
Well, first of all, if I had my choice of who I would put in that house, I will tell you, this would get me to watch without question. I think Jim Cornette should be forced to share a house with Vince Russo for 6 weeks. I don't care how much money they want to charge for it. I would pay to see them put the two of them together. They'd have to trick Cornette into it because he would never agree to it. There would be a homicide. I know why they don't do it. So, yeah, I would love to see those two in a house together. But if I had to put together my own cast that I think could be realistic, I think Undertaker, Steve Austin, and Bret Hart are the three kind of bigger names. I would love to see them because they also worked in that same era.
Sure, yeah.
I almost feel you can have like a generational, you could do it where you have different seasons based on eras. You could have like the Attitude Era, you can have this era, that era. But I would say like Undertaker, Austin, Bret. I think William Regal would be interesting because I get the sense from what people have said about him that he's a pretty humorous guy. Yeah. DDP, I think it would be fantastic. He's up at 6 a.m. at the ass crack of dawn every morning doing yoga, trying to get everybody in the house, including Undertaker. You got to do DDP yoga, bro. And then Undertaker's reaction, I think, would be fucking priceless. So yeah, get him in the house. Absolutely. You got RVD. He's with Katie Forbes in the hot tub, half naked every day. And then why not throw in someone? He wasn't a main eventer, but he's a happy, jolly guy. Put the Godfather on the show.
Wow.
And there you go.
That's a fun one. That's good. See, me, I look at more of like the wacky of the whack. Like the first person I thought was Billy Jack Haynes. I mean, just the crap that comes out of his mouth, I think it would just scare the shit out. I think people legitimately that would be on that set would like, look, I don't care how much you pay. Get me out of this freaking house.
But that's the problem, though. I feel like they wouldn't feel safe. I think in the house with someone like Billy Jack Haynes.
See, it's gotta feel safe also. But I love those picks. I definitely would love to see Undertaker. Vince Russo and Jim Cornette. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but. No. Too bad Kenny Omega's not a little bit older. I'd love to see Kenny Omega and Jim Cornette. They should do something where you're forced to be in a house for one day, 24 hours. You have to be in the same room. You get a bathroom or something, but for 24 hours, you have to be in the same room. And you film it and see what goes down.
Well, they would have to check Cornette for sharp objects before allowing him into the room because he would. I don't think Omega or Russo would last long, and he probably would, he'd have like a shank hidden away in his pocket or something like that. So I know why it'll never happen, but my God, you talk about pay-per-view entertainment, I would pay.
Oh, yeah. Pay to see that's pretty epic, man. It's a shame how many people are gone from the first Legends House.
I think, was it half? I think about half the cast, right? Patterson's gone, Mean Gene, Howard Finkel.
Yeah, Piper.
Piper, yeah.
Piper's gone. And, it's a shame because, they ran into the financial issues. I mean, they weren't in any like real disarray, but they just decided to cut out like some unnecessary projects. And that was one of the first to go, and they never went back to it. Getting back to Ric Flair before, the second part of the story we were going to talk about. Ric Flair was spotted by the LAX airport with a 28-year-old woman. And these were the photos that popped up with this woman. Somebody actually posted a Facebook picture of her. Her name is, do I have her name? Yes, her name is Kelly Brewster. She lives in Florida, 28 years old. Nobody knows anything about her. A lot of people are insinuating that they are an item. My honest opinion on this is that I have not seen anywhere in the pictures of them being romantic. What I have a feeling is when I think about Wendy Barlow, when Rick was involved with her, one of the things that Rick was always talking about is because of his heart issues and his health, and he is a lot more frail than people think, that I think with Wendy out of the picture, I think Ric Flair needs like a visiting nurse. And I wonder if this woman is honestly someone who is being paid to basically take care of Ric Flair. Because Ric Flair probably physically cannot handle himself on an everyday basis without somebody there. And I almost think that maybe he stood with Wendy as long as he did out of necessity so she could take care of him.
Yeah, I mean, look, Wendy, this woman was changing this guy's colostomy bag, for Christ's sake. I mean, she was taking care of a lot of things for him. My understanding, at least according to him, is that they're not together in a relationship, but they're still, I guess she's handling his affairs still, like they're still on good terms and they're still kind of working together. But yeah, I mean, look, I had only learned of this today. Honestly, I see stuff like this when it comes to Flair. I don't even give a shit. I see something like that. I felt the same way that you did because look, what 28-year-old woman is going to be interested in Ric Flair if not for the money? And how much money does he really have? Paying alimony to 3 or 4 women.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you probably are onto something there. Or maybe she's, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of family tie-in there. Maybe by family they're related in some way. I don't know. I just think back to that train photo. Remember the train photo? I know he denied it, but I'm not so sure. Because that train photo, I think time-wise, even though he denied it, popped up around the time that he now claims he and Wendy, I think, first separated.
Right.
I'm just saying. So you put two and two together and you start asking some questions. But
Yeah.
when it comes right down to it, I'd rather not think of Ric Flair.
Yeah, we will not post that photo over here.
No.
We don't want to get any heat over here.
No.
All right. Let's answer a couple more questions. We'll talk about the Booker T comments about Brock Lesnar beating every black champion in WWE. And then we'll answer a couple of chat questions, super chat, and we'll get out of here, if that's all right with you.
That sounds good to me.
All right. Very cool. In no particular order, why do we think so many people wanted to see you and I feud? And by the way, before you answer that, for those that are asking, this is a real picture. This was a little less than 3 years ago when we had that get-together at Lucky 13, and a lot of you may remember. It was hosted by Wrestling Soup, and I had showed up, Jason had showed up, and we met afterwards. For everybody that kept asking.
Didn't
What?
you bring the cannolis that night? You brought the cannolis.
Yes, I brought the cannolis that night. For those asking, no, I didn't go grocery shopping before I went home. I actually, if anybody goes on my Twitter at Don Tony D and you look at my profile picture, you'll see on the top I had trading cards. And I actually brought about 50 of those framed sets of trading cards and I gave some away. So I had some left over and they were in that shopping bag. So that's what was in the bag.
You can be honest. We don't have to sugarcoat things here. He had stopped off at Dwayne Reed. He had a few items to pick up. He was on his way, and unfortunately, that person happened to. Actually, I think it was Mish who took that photo.
Yes,
and happened to get the bag there. Don Tony was also standing on a step stool because I'm even taller than he is. You just couldn't tell from that photo. But
yeah,
we'll ignore that.
Well, that night I had a ball, and it was very cool meeting you. This was only about 3 weeks after my diverticulitis surgery, so it still was a little bit painful to be able to move around, but I wasn't going to miss it. But it's interesting looking back at all these years that people, because I still remember to this day when I walked up to you and we walked up to each other, the first words out of your mouth is, "Why are we feuding?" And it was funny because I know what it was. I mean, we had different opinions in wrestling. And I remember somebody had asked me about a particular topic. They didn't say that you had said it. They just said, "What do you think about the claim that blah, 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 blah?" And I said, "I think that's stupid." And right away, that's where the snowball went. "Oh, I called you stupid." And I was like, "No, I didn't call him stupid, but just the way the person presented it to me, it's kind of similar of when that person asked Cody Rhodes, what do you think about Pat McAfee saying that, Shaq's match is not going to be, all-time great? It was taken out of context. But ever since then, it felt like people always wanted to see us feud. And I think the reason why so many people did is because, and I used to say this back in the 90s with the hotline wars that would go on, I think a lot of people, because pro wrestling storylines are so bad that they suck, that people wanted real life heat. People love real life fighting. And they ain't no wrestling storyline on TV that's going to be as entertaining as if you and I go at it, I go at it with Kevin, or like people want to see that real life friction. But I don't know, did you get that same perception?
Yeah, I think people they thrive on controversy. I think that they thrive on controversy. They're very tribal also. Because you have people who are fans of my show but not yours, or fans of your show but not mine. And you see it with WWE fans and AEW fans on social media every week. Yeah. It's like every time I see Alvarez or somebody post that Dynamite ratings tweet, it's like just duck and cover because it's coming.
Yeah.
Every week, everybody has to pick a side, pick a team, and be loyal to that side. I just think it was people who were just trying to stir shit up, who thought that they saw something or heard something that didn't actually exist, but in their own mind, and before you know it, people buy into it, they believe it. It's like the epitome of fake news, right? And then it spirals out of control, and before you know it, it's turned into a whole brush fire. So. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think it's people. I'll use this analogy. It's driving along on the highway and you see a car crash and you want to stop and take a look at it. People, they're enamored by that kind of thing.
I will admit, I mean, I was an absolute asshole back in the day. I mean, I've tried, I've matured a little bit, and I think my fiance is probably the one that's been most responsible for it, but I'm not going to deny. I mean, a lot of the stuff back in the day was definitely in my own doing, no question. But we have this show tonight to show everyone that yes, we do get along. We may not agree on every particular topic, but I absolutely always respected what Jason does, and he's good people, and no more of these insinuations that there's wars going on. So, because it ain't gonna happen. All right, this is pretty cool because apparently you and I are the only podcasters that have had signs at Saudi Arabia shows. I saw the one that those two gentlemen brought for you last week. I thought that was pretty damn cool. Honestly, that many miles away in that country, how does that feel to see somebody not only bring it to the show, but take the time to actually make something up like that, which is not as easy as what it used to be because a lot of the materials are not readily available anymore. I always bring it up. There's no stationery store a couple of blocks from me where I could just go in there, get a piece of O-Tag and a couple of markers and start making something. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and he did the same thing for the show in October as well. It was the same person. He keeps getting great seats. So the last show, he was on the hard camera, and he held up, it was a similar sign with the logo. You couldn't miss it. And I saw that, and I felt the same way. I said, man, here he is. I don't know how many thousands of miles away he is, like halfway around the world. I don't know what we do or don't have in common, but he's a big enough fan of my show because I've talked to him before. I would take phone calls on the streams, and he would call in. I'm like, what time is it where you are? And he's like, early in the morning. He's got to go to work. I'm like, you're a crazy man. Yeah. So when I saw that again, I was like, it blows you away. And like even on Dynamite last night, I know it wasn't Saudi Arabia. Bridgeport, Connecticut is quite a distance from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. But there was another sign in the crowd. Whenever you see stuff like that, and I've seen, signs for your show as well, and even back, the old DTKC signs would pop up. I think there were people in the front row at some shows that were dressed like you guys at one point. Yeah. So when you see stuff like that, it's awesome because it just shows the reach that these shows have, and that people care enough to take the time, whether it's to dress up like you or put a giant head. I mean, you get people putting your fucking face on a giant head and holding it up in the crowd. I'm like, are they trying to tell me something here that I have a big head? Which, all right, maybe they're not wrong, but you see stuff like that, and it's awesome. It's a great feeling because I think it's easy to forget that you kind of put these shows out there. And you don't realize, like, they're going out all over the world, places that you wouldn't even think they have a lot of wrestling fans. And there are people that listen and watch every single week. It's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah. One thing I've come to the conclusion over the years, your listeners, your viewers, mine, when it was DTKC, Soup, JD, and others, one thing that we've noticed repeatedly is that everybody who does that for us, you all got cash because you always got some kick-ass seats. It's either ringside or dead center camera. I mean, it's always like, that's the first thing that we always know is like, wow, that's pretty cool. But man, those are pretty awesome seats. I mean, they always got incredible seats. I mean, it's fabulous. And honestly, it's very humbling to see that kind of support so far away. That's why, like we said when we opened the show, I mean, our thoughts are with Ukraine, obviously, and we wish we could do more. But, we have people that tune in from Saudi Arabia, from Israel, Palestine. I mean, we've had calls in there. So maybe there are some people that are in Ukraine that are wrestling fans that might be tuning in just, to get their minds off of the disgusting behavior by Russia right now. So, if we could, the only way we could give back is to give you a nice, fun show to get your mind off it. And you don't have to have conflict and war. It's everyday problems. There's a lot of, stuff going on in this world, from COVID to unrest. And, so if we can, get your mind off it for a little while and you have some fun. And that's why it's so important to me, even in the chat room, to see everybody getting along. And DJ White Sox, you are wrong. You're absolutely wrong. So that's all I'm going to say.
It's funny you mentioned COVID, though. I don't know about you, but I got actually quite a few emails from people, even coming out when things started to open up a little bit more, just saying that, people who were stuck at home and weren't seeing friends, or maybe they were living away from their family and they got depressed, and they would say, shows like mine and others, is what kind of kept their mind sane, through times like that. So I think a lot of times you don't even really realize it, because we're doing a show. We're looking in a camera, or I'm recording into a microphone. I'm talking about wrestling and how shitty Monday Night Raw is and how great this is and how, this and that. And you don't necessarily stop and realize that somebody's going to listen to that, and it could actually be really helpful to them. And I think that's the coolest thing, about doing these shows. I
don't want to throw you with a curveball. We weren't planning on talking about this tonight. Since you mentioned COVID, I see the connections starting to really brew now. Any thoughts at all about this controversy that's building online, that the Control the Narrative promotion headed up by EC3 and Adam Scherr, the former Braun Strowman, is alt-right, anti-vax? Does it, you get that vibe yet, or you think that's just, because I don't know if I feel that yet, but it's weird. Like if I see Jackson Riker announced in the main event against, Velveteen Dream, you know what I mean? And then I'll start thinking,
your promotion is over. Yeah, that promotion won't last very long if that's your main event.
What do you think? What do you think about that promotion?
I
Give it some time?
Look, we'll see. I mean, some of the names that are involved, I get that vibe. And others, I'm not sure what their views are on some of these things. I mean, I've seen things posted online, and maybe it's true. It does seem like there may be something there, but again, it's too soon to tell. They have 3 or 4 people, I think, that are associated or connected now to their little group. I mean, they're only first starting to schedule events. I mean, they have a roster of 4 so far. I don't know how big the roster is, but we'll see. Well, if another 1 or 2 names get added, depending on who they are, then there may be a pattern there.
Okay. Got another interesting question from Michael Gonzalez. If we could ask Vince McMahon one question, and he has to give you the honest answer, what would it be?
Well, it's funny. I've actually answered this on my show before. I got the same exact question. I feel like I've gotten this question 5 times, and I always give the same answer. The number 1 question I would want to ask Vince McMahon, if you injected him with some of that CIA truth serum and he had no choice but to tell the truth, and even then I'm not sure he would. I always think of the story from Jimmy Snuka's book, where, and I you know what I'm gonna say, but I always think of the story from Jimmy Snuka's book, and I brought this up when I reviewed the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Nancy Argentino, and to this day I don't know why he even put that story in his book. He didn't have to say anything. All it has done is it's created all of this doubt. But he put that story in there about being at the police station and then seeing Vince McMahon coming to, I think it was in Allentown, coming to the police station, walking in with a briefcase, going in to talk to the cops. The door gets shut. And when Vince comes out, everything I think is all taken care of. Of course, they never press charges against him. And it's a big mystery. What was in the briefcase that Vince McMahon took to the police station? I want to know what was in the brief. I have a feeling I know what was in the briefcase, but I can't say for sure. That's what I would ask him. If I knew he would have no choice but to tell me the truth, I would want to hear it in his own words.
Son of a bitch. I had no idea what Jason's answer was going to be. I was thinking to myself, maybe he'll ask about Macho Man and Steph. Maybe he'll ask about something with this. That's exactly of all the things I would want to know. My answer is actually a little different than yours, but I would want to know, when Jimmy saw him that night, what did Jimmy tell him? That's what I wanted to know. I mean, the suitcase, obviously, as well. But, like I'm older than you, but I was a WWF fan since 79. I didn't really understand wrestling as much, but by 82, when Snuka feuded with Backlund, Snuka was my favorite. Snuka was my favorite until Morocco came along, and then once Terry Funk, I learned about Terry Funk. The rest is history. Terry Funk's my all-time favorite. But when that came out in the Daily News about, the mystery death, at the time it seemed like it was an accident. But over the years, you hear more and more, and when you mention the book, the vibe that I got was the same thing as OJ. When OJ wrote, "If I did it," I think you and I would not be able to relate, but I think there's people out there who have committed heinous crimes, and some accidental, some not premeditated, but still committed outrageous crimes. And I think it gets to a point where they have to tell somebody. They have to get it out of their system. That if you see a lot of interrogations by police, they will tell someone like, get it out of your system. Let it out. I know you've been holding it in forever. And I think Jimmy Snuka put it in the book as the only way that he could get it out of his system and clear his head. I don't think he expected what was going to transpire from it, but I always wondered, what did Jimmy Snuka say to him, to Vince? Because Vince, in order to show up with that briefcase, he obviously had to know what's up. To this day, I think it was an accident, but I think Jimmy Snuka lost his cool. Wow. I think he assaulted her, but I think she fell, hit her head, and the rest is history.
Yeah, again, there's a family friend that I have. She was actually best friends with my mother, and she was friends with Nancy. So I heard about this a long time ago, not from Dark Side of the Ring or Jimmy's book or anything like that. And again, she's obviously, very passionate about it because she was friends with this woman, and she has it in her head that she knows that, he murdered her, and she's been adamant about it. And I always knew if I was going over to their house to hang out with my friend, do not mention Jimmy Snuka, don't play a Jimmy Snuka match, anything like that. I knew that. But it got me curious, and that's when I started reading up about it and stuff, and found out a lot of the really deplorable things about it, where he would beat her up.
Yeah.
And I think Buddy Rogers and his wife were neighbors with them at one point, I think, and they would see her bruised, and I think they knew what was going on, and I think Rogers didn't want to be associated with him anymore because of it, because he was a fucking madman. So. He was an asshole, very popular. He derailed his own career with his drug issues and everything because I'm not going to say he could have been in the Hogan spot that Hogan was in going into WrestleMania, but he was at that level at that time. He was super popular, and I was young at the time, but my father was a big Jimmy Snuka fan, and he was at the first WrestleMania with my grandfather. I still have a WrestleMania shirt they bought me that fits my thigh right now, but so Snuka was a big deal. Yeah. And it's funny now, again, even you probably wouldn't have known at the time unless you were at those events, but people knew about it because when he was back at the live events, there were people in the crowd chanting, murderer and stuff. Yeah, you killed his girlfriend. Like, it wasn't like some big secret. So anyway, that story he relayed in the book, it was so unnecessary that maybe there is something like what you said where subconsciously he just felt like, it was something, even though he denied it, he did say in the book, like, I didn't do this, but maybe some part of him just felt like, I got to put this in there. And,
that's his twisted way of, he probably convinced himself over the years that it was an accident.
But, again, and not to go through all the details of it again, but just, it was, when I watched the Dark Side episode, it brought it all back, like the inconsistencies in the story about, she got out of the car to pee on the side of the road, and then that story changed, and he told a different version, and I always kind of was amused by the idea that when Vince got called into things, I think he was talking to the police, if I'm not mistaken, on the scene, or the people who were on the scene at the time, and treating it as if, Snuka's, his English isn't very good. Like, he's an actual, like, island savage who can't communicate in English. He'll all do the talking for him. Like, he's a carny. He's a carny promoter, so I could totally buy that. But yeah, that whole thing was just sad, and we will always be left to wonder, I guess, what was in the briefcase that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he has some WWE merch. He was going to give out some Hogan autograph pictures and stuff.
Yeah. Morocco won't even really reveal all that much. He brushes it off every time he's asked about it, too.
You know what was so telling, though, is if you remember the Dark Side episode, they interviewed, was it Tonga Kid?
I think it was Tonga Kid.
I think it was Tonga Kid who was in the car with them. When supposedly she said, pull over, I have to go, pee on the side of the road. And he's such a nice guy. Like, Tonga, again, if I'm mistaken, I think it was Tonga Kid, but, he seems like a really nice guy and everything, and big smile on his face. And they asked him about it. And he got really kind of anxious and told the version, oh, yeah, I remember what happened. And he told his version, and then they told him, well, that's not what either Jimmy said or that's not what this other person said. And he was like, oh. And he had to excuse himself, and he was like crying because to him, Jimmy, I don't know if they were related by blood, but he was like family to him.
Yeah.
Maybe literally family. And you just can see it on his face. Like, he knows he's not a stupid person, but what's he going to do? He's going to say, oh yeah, he did it. He probably did it. But it's a shame what happened because it's a brutal thing. It's an absolutely brutal thing.
It's probably the same feeling that of some wrestlers, we won't mention names, who were very, very close friends with Chris Benoit, that, it's hard for them to come to terms that such a close friend turned out to be a murderer. You know what I mean? Like, you always try to come up with a different scenario, like, okay, it was the steroids, it was this, it was that. Maybe Jimmy was under the influence, maybe this. And you try to come up, and all those years, you keep thinking to yourself the same thing, and you start believing it. And then you think, after all these decades with Tonga Kid, he gets hit with the reality, and he just gets crushed over it. Yeah. After all this time, it's pretty wild.
You convince yourself until reality smacks you in the face, and it's like, what do you say? There's nothing to say.
Yeah. Staying on the retro, if you could relive one wrestling memory or one storyline all over again from scratch, what would you choose?
Oh, well, there's a lot of moments I wish I could go back and relive. The one that I would have loved to have been there live for, not watching it on TV like I did, but be in the building, was the Monday Night Raw, which was a taped show, where Mankind beat The Rock for the WWF title. Because just watching on television, not even in HD at the time, I had like a little shitty CRT television like everybody else did. When the glass shattered and Austin came down to the ring and people weren't expecting him to be there that night, I've never seen a reaction from a crowd in my life that I think rivaled the reaction when Austin walked to the ring. Like, you could see the hard camera was shaking. The whole crowd in unison, before the music itself started, rose to their feet. To the point where I can remember, like, the security guys in the crowd who are looking at they're supposed to be looking at the crowd. Yeah. Even they're like, what's going on here? They have to turn around and see what the commotion is. To be in the building that night would have been amazing. And then, of course, for Mick Foley to get his moment and, being carried around on DX's shoulders, I think that would have been a fun moment to be a part of. And I was at a bunch of different Attitude Era Raw shows, and it was like a party. Yeah. And I feel like I was the right age at that time. Not too young, but not too old. And I could appreciate a lot of the shit that they would do on the shows back then. And I was there for many an occasion where Austin would fill the Corvette with cement. That was at the Nassau Coliseum. Or he would come out on a Zamboni. I wasn't there live, but that was, a lot of fun. So those are the moments I wish. I feel, I don't know we're ever going to get those days back. Yeah. You have those crowds that are that engaged and that loud. Yeah. I think part of it is just, there were crowds full of teenagers. And what do teenagers do? They're fucking brats. They make noise, right? That's what they do. So that's why I get questions from people. Do you think we'll ever get crowds like that again? I said, no. You'll have moments like CM Punk coming back in Chicago and stuff. But no, I don't think we're ever going to. If you live through it, be fortunate that you did. Because I don't know that we're ever going to have an era like that again.
That's why I think with this forced war that a lot of people try to put online between AEW and WWE. I think it's a lot of wrestling fans who did not experience the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, when we were, experiencing it. And you go back and you see that moment, like you said, my moment would have been Snooker Morocco, because I could have gone to the Garden that time and I didn't go because I didn't like traveling to the city all that much. I would have wished I could have gone.
That's like me with the first one night stand show they did at the Manhattan Center.
Yeah.
I had friends who went. I don't know why I didn't go. I ended up being in that building after that at Ring of Honor shows so many times. And that one night stand pay-per-view is probably it's one of my top 2 favorite wrestling pay-per-views I've ever watched.
Yeah.
So to be there live would have been, for that Sandman entrance at the end of the show, that would have been something else.
That 25-year anniversary we said earlier about ECW invading Raw. The week before, they did the spot on TV where Paul E. called into Raw and issued the challenge to Jerry Lawler, or Jerry Lawler issued the challenge, actually, and Paul Heyman said, "We'll see you next week." And all my friends were like, "Oh, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go." And for some reason, I didn't go. And, the funny thing is I had just started getting into our video at that time. There's a funny story that in 1996, I sent Rob Feinstein about 200 wrestling magazines going back to the 70s in perfect condition that were just sitting in my house. And because he had our video, and because once in a while I get a free ECW tape, because I still have all my original VHS tapes, I said, "Hey, you want these magazines?" I didn't want any money for them. And I just sent it. And everybody's like, "Oh, you got to go, you got to go. Feinstein is saying this, our video, they're going to do all this stuff." And I didn't go. And I sat home and I watched on the TV, and I'm like, why did I not think that this was not going to be awesome? Because, at the time you didn't expect it. But I'm with you, man. The more I think about that, when that glass broke, I mean, you still could get chills now. If you are in a quiet room and you're focused and you're just, and you can't just go right to that match. You have to watch, like the whole episode and lead to it, and it gets you really, really pumped. And that's an epic moment. I absolutely love that choice.
It still has to be the loudest ovation that I've ever seen or heard, in my entire life, as far as that singular kind of wrestling moment. Austin's one of those just special types who, he had a lot of moments like that. I mentioned the Zamboni thing. I mean, people were going nuts, when he jumped off the Zamboni. And when they did the angle, when they did the invasion angle in 2001, and everyone's brawling, and Austin gets to the building, and they're building it, and then the glass breaks. And he had the Disturbed music at the time, but he's like storming down to the ring with that, BMF look on his face. The old Stone Cold Jim Ross on commentary is just, perfect. Those are the moments that they still give me goosebumps, when I think back to those moments, because you can put yourself back in that kind of frame of mind at the time. And it's kind of like going back for me and watching, actually, I should have mentioned this too, WrestleMania at the Skydome when they did Rock and Hogan. Yeah. And we got Hogan doing the old, Hulk up. And you see just this whole sea of fans who obviously grew up watching Hogan. They may have been in the building when he wrestled Warrior, in 90, and they're just losing their minds.
They're losing it.
And to me, that's what wrestling is all about. Yeah. I've had people ask me, like, do you consider that to be a 5-star match? And I don't, do star ratings like, Uncle Dave over there. But I said, yeah, to me, Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania 18, I would consider that to be a 5-star match every bit as much as I would a great, Bret Hart technical masterpiece or the first Hell in a Cell, because that is what wrestling is all about. It's about that emotion, that kind of moment.
Getting lost in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. One more looking back question. If you go back in the day to the day you started podcasting, what would you do differently? I guess just looking back at the years, is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, back then in the year 1870, podcasting was still in its infancy. No, for me, it was 2007 I mean, I had done a few radio things where I would call into radio shows. There was one in Colorado. There was one at a radio station a friend of mine worked at in Ohio. And I was kind of the designated wrestling report guy. So the first time I did that was actually 1998. And the one in Colorado, the guy had a segment called Shumi Shivani. It was like the in thing to make fun of Tony Schiavone because every night was the greatest night in the history of our sport. So I don't even know how he discovered me. I think I had put something online and he said, "You want to call in?" And so I would call in and talk about the news. But podcast wise, it was 07. And looking back on it, I wish my audio quality was a lot better at the time than it was, because to go back and I have every show saved, and I've started putting up the what I call the lost episodes for channel members on YouTube. And I'm like, just to hear my voice and everything back then, it's tough to go back and listen to for me. But I wish I would have dove into video a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah,
because I could have done it. I mean, I could have done it a good 3-4 years at least, earlier than I did. And I don't know why. Now, I had the YouTube channel for a very long time, and there was very little content on there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I really saw the value in it at the time. And I kick myself now because, by now, had I started really taking it seriously, I probably would have been in triple digits by now. But it took a while to see the real value in it. And I have found, and I don't know if you've found the same thing, there is a lot of crossover, but it's almost like having two different audiences.
Yeah.
I have the main audio show. I still do it every Sunday. I think I'll always do it. And then there are people who maybe they just don't like listening to 90-minute or 2-hour podcasts. They just like the clips,
yes,
the shorter clips, and they like the live streams. So I might take something from the main show, put it on the channel, not unlike what TV tracks used to do. And it's the first time they're hearing it. And so I have these two distinctly different audiences, and I just neglected it for so long. So I wish I would have dove into the video aspect of YouTube a lot sooner than I did, if I knew then what I know now.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I always tried to have my audio quality as good as possible. I just didn't have the drive to really learn and work behind the scenes. Shout out to KD. And by the way, I will make a promise. I already told Jason, and Solomonster will definitely let everybody know if I don't come through. Anything that is generated tonight on this show, as far as super chats go, we are dividing it right down the middle. And in the future, if we do something again, we'll do something like for a charity stream or something with a really important cause behind it. But thank you, KD. That was very, very generous of you. And
thank you, KD.
Yeah. Shout out to his two favorite podcasters. Became a member of both at the same time about 6 months ago. That we both have a lot of respect for our audience. It's about time that we got together and did something. Look, it's interesting for me because of all these years, never thinking like, oh, I'm not having anybody on. And I asked everyone out there, I said, look, you choose. Who do you want more than anything else? People chose wrestlers. People chose promoters. And you were number one on the list. And I said, yeah, absolutely. If he's willing to do it, I'm absolutely willing to do it. So much love, KD. And we'll get into everybody else's in a moment. We got two more advanced questions. 2 or 1? No, just 1. Then we'll talk quickly about Booker T. We'll answer a couple of super chats, and then we're out of here. So we'll be done within the next 15, 20 minutes. Micah Rivello. Okay. This one I think is pretty easy. Who do you want inducting Undertaker in the Hall of Fame, and who should? Because there may not be the same person. Who would you want, and who should?
Well, in a perfect world, if he was still alive, I think Paul Bearer would be the one. I would love to have him be the person to do it.
Excellent.
Maybe they can get the Paul Bearer hologram to do it that they had at Survivor Series a couple of years ago. Who do I think should do it? I just talked about this the other day. I don't know what their plans are for the Hall of Fame. I don't think they're going to do a solo induction. I think if anybody ever was deserving of one, it would be him. and I would not mind that at all. I don't think they're going to do that. So logistically, maybe they feel like this wouldn't work out. I think that it would be appropriate to have what I think are his three greatest rivals share time equally. And again, they can't all talk for 10 minutes because then you're doing 30 minutes worth of an introduction speech. But I've always said Mankind is the Undertaker's greatest rival. I know some people are going to say Kane and some people are going to say, Shawn Michaels and all that. And those are fine answers. To me, it was always Mankind. Because Mankind was the first person, even more than Yokozuna or anybody else, when he came in, he was treated like a real threat to The Undertaker, and he got a couple of big wins over him on pay-per-view. And that's something that you really did not see back then. And that really helped vault Mankind into a prominent role in that company. And then, of course, I don't have to tell you about the Hell in a Cell match that came a couple of years after that. So Mankind, Shawn Michaels, and Kane. I would have all three of them say a few words to introduce The Undertaker before he comes out on stage. But if I had to boil it down to just one, let's say, they said, no, you can only pick one, I would have it be Mick Foley.
I like that choice. I would have loved for it to be Vince if it was Vince from 5 or 10 years ago. That could actually... it's right now. It gets... I feel, it's sad. It's sad. I mean, I know Vince is not a popular person with the releases and everything like that. But, I've said this before, that Vince has been on... Next to my dad and my brother, Vince is like the third longest man in my life. As weird as that sounds. I think it might be Kane in the end. But I love your idea if Undertaker goes in alone. Because if Undertaker goes in alone and you don't need to have separate inductions for various wrestlers, that's a great idea. You can have Shawn Michaels say a few words. You could have Triple H say a few words. You could have Mick Foley say a few words. You could have Kane say a few words. And then Undertaker comes out. If it's only one induction, I think that's an excellent idea. I'm with you that I have a feeling we may have more inductions as well. But that's a great idea. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And again, I don't get the sense that that's what they're going to do. When I saw Mickie James was brought back for the Royal Rumble, I said at the time, I would not be at all shocked if she goes into the Hall of Fame this year. So it could just be that they want to have, that main attraction. They want to have one female inductee and one tag. They kind of have their formula. They usually have a celebrity go in. So, I get it. They'll probably end up doing that. But if ever there was a person who deserved a solo induction, it would be The Undertaker.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Professor John Gotti. I kind of feel bad because your name is cut off a little bit.
John Go.
Wow.
Go.
You know what? I gotta fix the name just for that. That is extremely generous of you, my friend. Not even a question, not even a comment, nothing other than a thank you. I thank you for that. I have a John Gotti license plate somewhere, and I don't know where I put it. And I have the Gotti shirt inside.
I will say that I have been ambushed by the professor many times on my streams. He's a good guy. I did not know he was joining us live. That's awesome, and he's a good dude. So
I'm going to wear the Gotti shirt on Saturday just for you.
There you go.
Thank you very much, my friend. Shout out also to Roel Pena. The writing's a little small. And the more you write, that's why the characters get smaller.
Yeah.
Just want to make that clear. Shout out to Trax, first of all. So both of your clips back in 2013, when he was at a rough time in his life, and both our shows got him distracted for a bit, and he's been hooked since. Appreciate everything you both do. Lunch is on me next time you all meet up. We ain't waiting until we meet up next time. We eat lunch tomorrow.
That's
we
right.
may not eat it together.
This way. There's a thing called Grubhub. You can Grubhub us. No, we're kidding.
Yeah, no. And
that's very cool.
I won't wait until YouTube settles us up a month from now. Whatever adds up tonight, I will DM and PayPal it to Solomonster tonight. It can't be, I get a little personal at times. But Roel, that is very, very generous. Thank you very much, my friend. Before we answer any final Super Chats, one more topic, then we'll get into the rest of the Super Chats, and then we will call it tonight. All right. I don't know how you feel about this. I know it's probably an awkward conversation for you and I to have because we're white. And I'm just saying it like that. I'm not being controversial right now. Nobody will be upset what I'm going to say.
How could you tell?
Yeah, well,
Is it that obvious?
We're not black. We're not, mistreated compared to what a lot of others have gone through. Not just, criminal behavior. It's also how you're treated in the workplace. It's how you're treated, the way you're perceived when you walk down the street. It doesn't always have to be a violent encounter. You are disrespected quite a bit. It got a little controversial with Brock Lesnar winning the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber. We all know Bobby Lashley injured, likely to be out up to 4 months. It kind of sucks that they did this in storyline because he got injured at the Royal Rumble and they probably could have taken care of his shoulder right around, a few days after the Royal Rumble. They waited pretty much a whole month just so it would fit into a storyline. But the narrative going around online is, for a lot of people, is that Brock Lesnar has now beaten every WWE black champion. And a lot of people are bringing up the color aspect about it. So Booker T was asked about this. And he thinks it's a little ridiculous because Brock Lesnar has defeated a lot of white WWE champions. But Booker T's quote comment is, that's not even a conversation that should be had. That's stupid. People want to bring race into it. He beat the black guys. He beat the white guys too. Just because he beat the black guys, it's a problem. I mean, what color do you want them to be? He'll beat them too. It just makes no sense to make that conversation. For that to be something on Twitter thrown around from a negative perspective about Brock Lesnar, making him a racist. I don't know if that was the conversation, making him a racist, but that's what it sounds like. Now, I will say this. I did not see many people online accusing Brock Lesnar of being racist.
No.
But
No.
Do you think that skin color should always be brought up every time somebody loses a championship?
No, and I mentioned it on my show a couple of times, even coming into the pay-per-view, but in a joking way, which is the only way I've seen anybody mentioning it on social media. So I'm not sure what he's seeing that I wasn't seeing. I think people brought it up kind of in jest. Somebody noticed it somewhere. It was posted, and other people started running with it. And I mentioned it on my show. I said, it's kind of interesting that every person, every African American WWE champion, not world heavyweight champion, because then you can expand it out to Booker T and other people, Mark Henry. So we're talking WWE title, and it's true. You go back to The Rock, and then, of course, that opened up a whole can of worms when I said that, because you have the contingent of people who go, well, The Rock is... I saw one of the dumbest things. I have to just say this real quick. Actually, somebody brought it up on my stream yesterday in a super chat that a friend of theirs, or their brother or something, had a friend who said he doesn't consider The Rock to be black because he has tribal tattoos. And I said, well, tell your brother that he needs to find new friends. That's my advice to him, because that's one of the stupidest fucking things I've heard in a very long time.
Yeah.
But we'll put that on the side. He beat The Rock. He beat Kofi Kingston. He beat Big E. And now he took the championship from Bobby Lashley. And it was tongue-in-cheek. So I don't know if he's, again, hearing about this and thinking that people are talking about it in a serious way, like, well, that means Brock Lesnar is a race. I mean, that's a completely ridiculous thing. I have seen nobody say that.
Yeah.
There are people who have joked about it tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, boy, Brock, it's Black History Month. This is Brock Lesnar. He's part of Black History now. But no one has been seriously accusing Brock Lesnar of being a racist because he's beaten these men for the championship. And by the way, nobody in wrestling gets beaten for a championship. You're booked to
Right.
win a
Right.
championship. So let's
Exactly.
just establish that. That's just ridiculous to me. So
Yeah.
maybe he saw something that somebody posted and they were being really dumb, but all I've seen are people just kind of saying it in kind of a humorous way, because it is kind of interesting when you think about it. I didn't realize that until I saw that it was mentioned, and I said, huh, that is kind of interesting. But it's not something where, Brock Lesnar is erased. I mean, this is the problem with social media, right? You have a lot of good people on social media, but unfortunately they get drowned out by all of the dumb people.
Yes.
Because unfortunately there's far more dumb people on social media than not, and their voice travels louder. And so I think that's an example of what we're seeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Before we wrap this up, we're just going to answer a couple of super chats that came in, a couple of shout outs as well. First off, shout out to Gostros 123. I'm a little parched. I have water here, but I want to thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Brian Becerra, he's like J-Lo and Selena. He is excited to hear us together. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show.
Shout out to Brian. I hear from him every week. He's always
good people.
He's very good people.
Long time supporter of all the families. Nero Fay.
So is this guy. Yeah, so
Yes.
is this guy here.
Tuning in all the way from Israel. Beat COVID, kicked Hodgkins' ass, and he's fighting a good fight in Israel. And it sucks that it has to be considered a fight, but that is peace. Very, very good dude. And glad that you're doing well, and I hope everything is better with your wife. So
Yeah, I got that email from him last week. He told me that things have improved, because he told me his wife, was sick with COVID. But I know he got some positive news on the cancer front, and he's expecting a newborn very soon. So hopefully, things are on the upswing for him.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I mentioned it yesterday, and he reached out to me. And friend of the family for sure. For all of you out there, if you're not aware of it yet, Brian Clark, Atom Bomb, chronic. His mom passed away Tuesday. She had a long battle with a health issue. I don't want to say what it was, but I reached out to him yesterday. We've talked in the past quite a bit, and thoughts and prayers are with his family. So just wanted to mention that. If any of you out there want to reach out to him as well, shout out to Alex Jimenez. Podcast Legends Unite. He is a lucky witness. Yes, you are not being fooled tonight. Bizarro land to some, kind of disappointment to others, but I think for the majority, enjoyment. That was our intentions tonight, and fabulous. So glad that you all could tune in tonight. Nair Al-Safir, much love to you, my friend.
There's
Shout out
Naif.
to you,
My
Mr.
boy
Solomonster.
Naif.
Yep.
There you go. I love it. They're all coming out tonight. It's like this union of fans from all sides here coming together.
Yes,
tonight.
absolutely. Awesome. Mike from New York. Will WWE remove Rusev and Lana's footage since he did the Russian gimmick? Because honestly, I mean
that's he used to, when they came out, if you remember, for a while there, I think they had Putin's face in the Titantron. Yeah,
I could see Peacock removing.
I doubt Peacock even knows about that.
Yeah, I don't know if they would even
videos.
spend that time. Yeah,
no,
but
that'll be fine.
Yeah, I that's almost like saying because one person in a nationality or a skin color does something terrible that you got to remove everybody. That it's kind of an extreme. But Solomonster brings up a good point. How many times Lana Putin? You probably regret it. You probably should not name drop, even if you're a heel. WWE probably will think twice about name dropping tyrants in the future, because one day it may come to what we see now. So,
yeah, no mentions of Pol Pot or Genghis Khan on WWE programming anymore.
Yep. Shout out to Markel World. Much love to you.
Markel.
Yep. Mohammed Soria. He's Syrian, lived in Egypt, faced racism because he was exotic and didn't fit in. Why doesn't he bash these people? He's a global star like MJF. Yeah, look, I hear you. I mean, a lot of people have been treated awful, at points of their life. And, how you deal with that is, what gets you stronger, what makes you a better person. You don't want to repeat. I've always said you don't justify bad behavior with other bad behavior. And just because someone else is a racist asshole doesn't mean that you need to be a racist asshole. MJF, is a character. You don't know where to line. It's very blurred. But MJF, the way he is writing his career, he is over and above any high school, racist football player, anti-Semitic football player. So it holds a grudge.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have any issue with it at all. And whether he was Jewish or it was another nationality, I would feel the same way. I mean, he's just relaying a real-life story that he has told before and incorporating it into a storyline. He didn't name names or anything. I'm sure that next week, as we talked about, it's going to come back where he's going to throw it back in Punk's face. You bought it. I mean, he may pass it off like a fraudulent story on television, but again, he's taking something that he experienced in real life and he's just incorporating it into a promo. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. In fact, I think that wrestling is better when you're able to, I'm not saying it has to be, racism or anti-Semitism, but when you are able to be genuine and incorporate real life emotions and real life situations that maybe you've experienced, it comes off just better that way. It's more engaging that way than, if he was just doing some kind of tired trope that we see every week on TV. So I didn't have an issue with it at all.
That's why Moxley's return was so powerful, because there are people out there battling all forms of addiction. And to come out there and just be himself, which you knew he was. I mean, that connected with so many people that, and it's a shame because
one person it didn't connect with DT.
Yeah, the fan. I think you want to know something? I think it connected with that fan more than anyone else.
No, I'm not talking about the fan.
Oh, you're talking about Bully Ray?
I'm talking about Bully the Clown.
Yeah, Bully Ray. I'm surprised that he didn't apologize, or in retrospect, say, look, I thought about it after and this and that. I'm very surprised at that. Very surprised.
Because he doesn't think he said anything wrong. He thinks it was a perfectly valid question to ask, which makes it worse that he actually thinks it wasn't a stupid question.
Yeah.
Because that was a pretty stupid thing to say.
Yeah, he definitely still owes Moxley an apology. And you know what? Is he still not part of the Tony Khan segments? I don't think he is, because they removed him. So. Yeah, he wasn't part of a few, and I think that's by design. Probably Tony Khan just said, "Look, you want me on? No problem."
Even Renee said, I think it was like the week after or something. Yeah. I think Moxley was on the same. There was an independent show, and I think he and Bully shared the same locker room. And she said, "Yeah, he never came up to him to say anything or any. He's got my number. If he really feels that way and wanted to talk about it or whatever." Never said anything because he doesn't. He thinks that it was a perfectly logical thing to ask. That this guy, he owed the fans an apology, for depriving them. DT, I mean, my God, this guy decided to sober himself up instead of going to Poughkeepsie or whatever fucking town they were going to be in. I mean, little Timmy paid for a ticket to go see John Moxley wrestle. How dare he, look after his own health and well-being? What a horrible person. Bully the Clown. I'm
surprised he didn't be that outspoken towards others who went into rehab over the years. Rams fan. Would we ever be up for an AEW version of Bryan Danielson versus Pete Dunne? If you're saying if Pete Dunne were to ever go to AEW and fight Bryan Danielson, sure.
Of course. I mean, my God. What kind of answer would I be able to give other than yes? Of course.
Sure.
Cesaro's a free agent. You know what I would love to see? Cesaro does do some stuff in New Japan. Bryan, just today, I saw an interview with him. He said it again. He goes, he doesn't have a lot of things on his bucket list, but he wants to work a G1. Now, we could be in a situation where as early as this year, we could potentially have a Bryan Danielson-Cesaro match in the G1 climax. Sign me up.
It would look nothing like what you would see on SmackDown. It would look nothing like
not.
You know.
But what we saw on SmackDown was good. So imagine how much better this would be.
Yeah. I mean, look at Bryan Danielson's work in AEW. I mean,
it's been tremendous.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Shout out to French Fry Slut. I don't know if it's a he or a she. I think it's a she. Yeah, she waited for years for this crossover. Well, you should have spoke out sooner. It might have happened sooner.
Yeah.
It's all your fault, you slut.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey, you said it, not me. I didn't say it.
Much love. Much love. We're almost out of here. CJ Reichs. One of his favorite pay-per-views is SummerSlam 90. Favorite match was Demolition versus the Hart Foundation. Do we have any memories of SummerSlam 90? SummerSlam 90.
Go ahead. Yeah, you go first.
I am going to pull up the full card, and we will mention the matches very quickly because this should only take like 3 seconds. There we go. SummerSlam 1990. The card that night was, hold on. Oh, your super chat's only $5. We got to move on. I'm just kidding.
Let's go,
I'm just
CJ,
kidding.
slacker. Come on, man.
Oh, shit, that's right. Shane Douglas wrestled the dark match that night, beating Playboy Buddy Rose. I don't know if it's one of those matches where they have the lost footage, but Power and Glory over the Rockers, Texas Tornado over Mr. Perfect. That I do remember. Texas Tornado won the Intercontinental Championship that time. Yeah. If I remember correctly, he kept doing this through the match.
Well, real quick, though, the Power and Glory match, I don't know if you have the match times brought up. Is that the match? It was very brief.
6 minutes.
Shawn Mike, it was 6. All right, well, I don't know if it was that match or not. I think it was. Shawn, I think, had a knee injury, and he couldn't do anything. So I think he spent most of the match outside. If this is the match I'm thinking of, I think he spent most of the match outside. Power and Glory, I put them over on my podcast before. Especially their Powerplex finish was always a favorite of mine. That's why I love seeing FTR do it now in AEW. And they never got their just due. I think they could have absolutely had a tag title run back then.
We had other matches. Warlord over Tito Santana. That was kind of forgetful. Sherry over Sapphire by forfeit was bullshit. Hart Foundation over Demolition. 2 falls to 1. To me, that was like the starting to basically remove Demolition as characters entirely. Because I remember after that, you had, I think it was Smash, that would show up like on a lot of garden shows by himself. They changed the theme music. It sucked. And to me, it was a nice rub for the Hart Foundation. But to me, this was the beginning of the end for Demolition. And then eventually, we had Kona Crush, get involved with that. I don't know. To me, this was pretty much the beginning of the end of Demolition.
Yeah, I love the match. It's one of my favorite of the Hart, maybe my favorite Hart Foundation match. So I love the match. I remember this was around the time that, they had already started doing the deal where they would swap out Crush with Axe. Now, Axe was there. He didn't wrestle.
Right.
But I know he was there. He did like a run-in or he was hiding under the ring or something. But, to your point, the reason that it felt like this was the beginning of the end for Demolition is because they brought Legion of Doom in. Yeah. And they were there that night, actually. I think when Axe interfered, I believe LOD came down to kind of counteract him.
Yeah, to neutralize it.
But, once Vince got LOD, I think in his mind, he just felt like I got the real thing now. Yeah. It bothered me because I grew up, I was a Demolition guy. I was not a Road Warriors guy because I was watching a lot more WWF than I was NWA. I'd see NWA on the weekends when I go to my grandparents' house because they had cable. We didn't. So I'd see the TBS show and all that. But Demolition was the shit. I am a huge Demolition fan. I wish they were in the Hall of Fame. I kind of have a sense of why they're not. And it pisses me off because, they tend to wait a little too long sometimes until something bad happens, and then they get inducted. And I think, unfortunately, that's probably what will end up happening with them. But it was the beginning of the end. That was the last time they had gold in the company. They changed their music, which was a sin, because that Rick Derringer song is fantastic. And then you could just tell they did the bare minimum with them. I mean, look at what they did with them at WrestleMania the following year. I mean, you remember that. I mean, was a random match against two guys that they had brought in, Tenryu and Tenryu and Katao from Japan, and they beat Demolition in like 4 minutes. This was their homegrown team, so that's all you needed to know as far as them falling out of favor. Yeah. But the match itself, I thought was excellent. I loved it.
Yeah. The rest of the card: Jake Roberts over Bad News Brown by DQ, Duggan and Volkov over the Orient Express, Randy Savage over Dusty Rhodes.
That was disappointing.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, crap. Hogan over Earthquake by countout, and Ultimate Warrior over Ravishing Rick Rude in the cage match. So I loved Warrior and Rude at the time. Their feuds, I don't know, I enjoyed it. The pose down and everything like that. I don't know if you were a Warrior fan. I could never leave the bandwagon. I mean, some of his personal comments were disturbing, but as a fan, I got it at the time. He was just a larger-than-life superhero. He wasn't meant to be technically sound and pleasantly speaking.
I was more Hogan and Macho than Warrior, but, again, he was like a comic book character come to life. Didn't understand a fucking thing he was saying on promos, but he didn't have to. That was the whole gimmick. It was all gibberish. You want to see a really good Warrior Rick Rude match. I think the best match they had was their SummerSlam match in '89. So the year before this.
Is that when Heenan held the legs?
No, that was WrestleMania 5.
Oh, that was 5. Yeah, that's right. We were talking about it the other day.
They did the title change at 5, and so Rude didn't have the belt for very long, so they rematched him at SummerSlam. I want to say SummerSlam was at the Meadowlands that year, and that was where Piper came down to the ring, lifted up, he kind of bent over, lifted up his skirt, and that distracted Rude, and then Warrior ended up getting the win. It was one of the best matches I've ever seen Warrior have. Rick Rude and Randy Savage gave him his best matches. By far. It's not even close. Yeah. And Rude went on to do even better things in WCW.
Yeah. Shame the neck injury. The back
injury.
Him. Yeah.
The back injury. Yeah.
Oh, then the back injury. Yeah. I was thinking of the match he had with Sting.
Yeah.
That's why I thought.
That was tough to watch. The way he landed on that platform.
Yeah. Shout out to Anderson Blitz. Yeah, Ric Flair. You can still ride Space Mountain if you're 18. Again, we don't know about that girl.
Now the ride is closed for repairs.
Yeah, if that girl was smart and she's on social media, if there ain't nothing going on, she probably should just post something like, hey, look, I'm hearing these little things. Let me just make this clear. There's nothing going on between both of us. I don't know. But then again, she may like the attention that's floating around right now. So.
You never know.
Don Juan, the real rivalry is between myself and him. Who's the real Don? Me versus him in a ladder match. Who gets the rights? Well, I'm up for the challenge. Send me your information.
Custody of the Don.
Yeah. Well, you know what? John got you earlier with that super chat. He's the Don for tonight. Cruiserweight. Who are both of our favorite attractive female wrestlers who are under the age of 30? Favorite attractive? Is there really an unattractive woman in wrestling right now? If I had to look at absolute beauty, man, you put me on the spot. I'm engaged. I'm not supposed to look at female wrestlers like that.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of beautiful women in wrestling. If I had to pick one, just as a matter of personal preference, I happen to think she's a beautiful woman, and Jungle Boy is a lucky guy. I would go Anna Jay.
Okay. I don't know if she's under 30. She might be borderline. I would, believe it or not, I'm into Sonya Deville right now. I think Sonya Deville, she's just got that beauty upon. Look, Mandy Rose is a you could go down the list.
Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful women in wrestling. Yeah.
I don't know how old Sonya is, but Sonya, there's just that, you know what it is? She's not posing provocative. She's not wearing anything provocative. Just the way that she just does her hair and her makeup and the way she just looks, to me, I could go with for Sonya. She's gorgeous. Nick Midnight, okay. We're not gonna go there. Same
He's
thing
got
for DJ White Sox. I know DJ White Sox is joking, but
okay, but I was going to say, well, DJ's, he's got White Sox in his name, so I mean, how smart can he be? I mean,
yes.
Come on, let's be honest here. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's for the White Sox. Tom Phelan, forget tribalism. DT Soundor fan for life. Much love. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dorian Moore, NXT UK is the best booked WWE show every week. Wish we get more publicity in the States.
Probably the best show nobody is watching from what everybody is telling me. I check out the occasional match, when I find out that, Ilya Dragunov had an amazing match, or Mako Satomura has the women's championship. So I saw that match that she had with, Blair Davenport. That's the name they gave to Bea Priestley. So I saw that ankle injury a few weeks ago, which was pretty nasty, but there's only so much time in the week. I don't know what your routine or your schedule is like. I have a lot going on. I have a lot of different irons in the fire, but Raw, SmackDown, NXT, you got 2 AEW shows, it's too much to fit everything in there. There's dark and stuff. I can't possibly, watch all of it. So when I hear that something really good happens on the show, I tune in, and they've got some great matches. I'm glad they got people back in the studio there, because for a while it was just an empty television studio, and nobody wants to watch wrestling with no crowd.
It's depressing. Yeah. Shout out to KD. I know we mentioned it earlier, so much love, KD. I mean, I know we already answered it, but we could always thank you again for your generosity. Shout out to James Hollins. He discovered both of us through TV Tracks. We hope TV Tracks is doing well. I have not spoke to him in years, but I hope he's okay.
I picture him on a sandy beach somewhere with a pina colada in his hand.
Yeah. He did good. Podcast legend Killer, shout out to you. We will shout out John Gotti again in a moment. I'll explain why. Matthew Sheffy with Cesaro and Eddie Kingston heat. Cesaro may not go with Cesaro and Eddie Kingston heat. Cesaro may not go to, well, we said it earlier. We don't think Cesaro may be that great of a fit in AEW right now because of how many people are there.
Yeah, I think he might get lost in the shuffle. Look, he's going to make the decision that he thinks is best for him, but I actually think he would benefit by kind of playing the field and doing other things, and I like the New Japan fit right now for him, because he could always end up in AEW. He could always end up in WWE. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
I am not aware of the reason for the heat. I heard something about this. I don't know what the heat is between them, but whatever the heat is between them, the answer is no. So it's not going to stop him from going to AEW if that's where he wants to.
I mean, look at Colt Cabana and CM Punk.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, come on.
They work in the same company. Shout out again. French fry slut. Feeling like a broke ass donating $10. I'm going to buy sweet potato fries with that, slut.
That's offensive to French
I'm on
slut.
keto, but I'm slowly going off keto. I can't do shit, cold turkey, because my body just goes into lockdown. So I keep having to go back into it, but on the weekends, I look forward to some sweet potato French fries, you slut. Kenneth Taffy, shout out to you, my friend. Awesome to see us both crossover. Be cool to see this happen more often. By the way, with WrestleMania 40, do we see it going back to the Dome or elsewhere? Anything is possible with the amount of money that they're making now.
Yeah, I don't know if he's also referring to the idea that maybe they would go back to, the Garden, because the first, 10, 20, they came back to the Garden. I think those days are done.
Yeah.
Especially a show like 40. I think they're going to want to blow it up big in like a big stadium. You know what? I don't know what their plans are for 39. I think it's either 39 or 40 is going to be in Vegas. I think they got that new stadium in Vegas. They haven't had a Vegas WrestleMania in a very long time, and it's fucking Vegas. So why wouldn't you want to, have a whole week of different events and activities there? So I think that 40, I think there's a good chance it'll be in Vegas.
I see them doing a Mania in Saudi Arabia in the future. If they renew the deal and they get another 5 years, I could see the possibility of it. Maybe not WrestleMania, but I see them doing something.
They'll call it the greatest WrestleMania. That's the WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Remember they had the greatest Royal Rumble? They'll have the greatest WrestleMania. But WrestleMania proper, I don't see that happening.
It's the amount of money they're getting is insane. But unfortunately, we're starting to see that, Lita just did an interview. She'd love to have more matches. When you say that, that usually means you're not getting or you're not aware of any matches coming up. The fact that she said that is very, disappointing. And I think we all had a feeling that was going to happen. So
she didn't even know. I mean, she said that, I forgot what podcast she was on, but she said that she was only supposed to come in for the Rumble. And I think it was either at the Rumble or the next day they said, so, hey, how'd you like to work a match against Lita in Saudi Arabia? And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Then she had to race to get to Raw either that night or the next night. This was such a last minute thing. It's like the Goldberg thing. He was on his, he's got that CarCast podcast that he does. And he was talking about his whole experience in Saudi Arabia. And he said, he had COVID and he had 2 weeks to get ready for the show. They said, we want to do the match at you and Roman. And he goes, all right. So he had to recover from that. And then he had 2 weeks to get himself in shape and then fly over to Saudi Arabia. So I get the sense that, especially when it comes to the Saudi shows, a lot of this stuff is very, very last minute. They're not exactly planning these things out.
Yeah. Shout out to Magician Sapphire. 2 of his 3 favorite podcasts. Add JD from New York, and we have the pod. Let me tell you something. Maybe later this year, if the stars align and if Jason is not busy, Solomonster, maybe we can get, JD on, and we'll have J&J Security, and yours truly will do a little trifecta. Anything is possible. We will see.
J&J Security got their asses handed to them on television.
Well, I
got a compliment is that.
I'm in my 50s now, and I'm half crippled, so you don't have to worry about me doing anything. I saw people the other day that are like, oh, this is a setup. I'm like, I can't even kick the air anymore, and people think I'm gonna come on. I'm over the hill, everybody. Wrestling Soup. Wow, Wrestling Soup. Mish is in his house.
Hi, Mish. Hello, Mish.
Mish, what's going on, brother? Hope you're doing well. Much love. Hope to see you Monday. That's not sarcasm, by the way. Never been into podcasts, but us two are the few that he loves aside Wrestling Soup. Mainly stays up for us. Thank you for the cereal plug, Solomonster. Is that magic spoon?
It is, yes. It's a Magic Spoon, which I only first discovered it I don't know how many weeks ago. And it's great. It's great. So I was promoting it the other day, and people are like, oh, what is that? And I said, you got to try it. So there's a code, you get $5 off. And I've had a couple of people say, that they've had it. And it's because what it is I won't get into the plug too much, but basically they have these different flavors. And if you were a kid and you remember eating certain types of cereal, Fruit Loops and Trix, you remember Silly Rabbit, Trix are for kids and all that kind of stuff. So some of the cereal tastes like that, but there's no sugar, and it's keto friendly and it's soy free and all that kind of stuff. And so health wise, it's as good as you're going to get if you want to get a cereal that tastes like that, and it's tremendous. So
if anybody wants to order, they go to magicspoon.com. What's your promo code if they want?
Yeah, the link, because you can get $5 off. So it's magicspoon.com/Solomonster, and then at checkout just put Solomonster, and then boom, it'll apply automatically.
Yeah, definitely worth a try. I've never tried Magic Spoon. I've heard about it. I'll be honest with you, I probably will order it and try it out. The only one that I've tried was the one that Edge was promoting, I think, cereal snacks, but I didn't particularly like it all that much. The Magic Spoon I've heard a few things about. So
yeah, more people are starting to talk about it, so it's very cool.
Cutting down on sugar, you don't have to be on keto, everyone. You want to cut down a little sugar,
it's hard.
Yeah.
Until you try to do it, and I've failed, but you don't realize just how everything has sugar, or the high fructose corn syrup. There's so much bad shit in everything we eat, and you get addicted to it. So it's not I'll just stop eating it. No, it's tough. People have a hard time with it.
Yeah. Steph, thank you. Sonya Deville is 28 years old. So for Cruiserweight, yes. So Sonya would qualify. So shout out to Brian Ewing. Much love. Hope you're enjoying the show. Hitman WA. I don't know if that stands for Washington, but great show, guys. Really appreciate what you do. Keep it up.
It does. Yep, I see him in the pop up in my chat as well. So shout out to Hitman.
Much love. Shout out to everybody tuning in tonight. So glad that everybody's enjoying the show. Kevin Murillo. He thanks us for the show. Thank you for your generosity as well.
Thank you,
for
Kevin.
enjoying the show. Much love. Swaggin' Silk with the super chat. Much love to you, my friend. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And thank you. That's very, very kind of you. Jordan Munson. Been waiting for this a long time. Thank you for both for giving us the best content throughout the decades. You're very welcome.
Boy, that makes me feel old.
I know. That's why I didn't really say anything. I mean, I can't hide it anymore. I mean, I have to like put the hat on to like cover up the gray.
I guess it's true though. I mean, think about it. You know, I know you're with the hotlines. It goes back to the '90s, but in terms of the podcasts and the audio shows, we've covered 3 different decades.
Yeah. You know what? If you count you calling into to those shows as well, I mean, you've done 4 decades: the '90s, the 2000s,
Crazy.
the 2010s, 2020s. 4 decades.
Talking
You're
about
in your
wrestling.
4th decade.
My God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Just think, we might be podcasting into 7 different decades. Just think that.
We'll be like the Mae Young of podcasts.
Oh, my God.
She wrestled into 7 or 8 decades, I believe.
The only thing Mae Young and I will have in common is if I take my shirt off my chest, my tits will hit the floor.
I thought you were going to say the hand. I didn't know.
No. My tits will hit the floor.
Okay.
More Onison jokes, Jason. That is from Remember to Feed Yo.
Onision, my God. Yeah. What's Onision, I think, is a podcaster. I don't know why he mentioned him. Has he been in the news again? I'm not even really familiar with him that much. I know who he is, but
his name is Remember to Feed Your Kids. It's not for a jail. That is an interesting screen name. That is an interesting screen name. I mean, honestly, I know I'm boring with just Don Tony, but I'm like, if I want to, even, like back in the day with the message boards, like the only login name that I came up with, for those that don't know, back in the day with the message boards and everybody used to troll me under fake names, I had a fake name as well. I went under Don Cornelius. Every time I would put somebody down, I would finish it up by saying, fuck you, peace, and soul. Like just this smooth soul train. But I can't do it anymore. I can't keep up. But much love. Professor John Gotti, I told you I was going to mention his name again. More generosity. You must really be connected. I'm kind of afraid now. Because
I always say,
yeah.
Every time he drops love for me on the streams, and everybody in the chat says he's either laundering money or he's just in an industry that is very lucrative and he does very well, and he's not the kind of person that you want to get on his bad side. So we say thank you to the good
I can't believe it. When I used to do the wrestling managing stuff, I wore the John Gotti shirt. I did a tribute to John Gotti. His wife, his daughter Vicky, and others went to my wedding in 1999. And this is the first time I meet Mr. Professor John Gotti. How did our paths never cross?
That was funny. I thought of you. This was a couple of months ago. I was at Lenny's Clam Bar.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought of you, so, yeah.
Next time you go there, ask for Ruben. Not the sandwich, but there's a cook there, and his name is Ruben. I am like this with him. He has insurance with me, and he tells me all the time, he's like, you come over. You let them know that I'm here. I sound like he's Asian, he's Spanish. But he's like, if you have your friends, tell them, ask for Ruben. I will take care of him. We went once about maybe 3 months ago, and my fiance ordered crab legs. And instead of getting 3 clusters, he sent like clams and mussels and all this other stuff. Wow. And ask for Ruben.
Well, I love I just love the wrestling photos.
Yes.
When you first walk in, King Kong Bundy and Jake, like the classics when you first walk in. Yeah.
I work right across the street. If you ever go there, you got to let me know. I'm right in the shopping center across the street, right upstairs.
Is that where you are? Yeah, I didn't know you were that close.
Yeah, I'm literally right across the street. So if you're around, if you want, King Bling Blah. What's the one wrestling event we wish we attended? They kind of
Well,
said
that's
this
easy.
before.
That's easy. One Night Stand 2005.
Yeah.
I still kick myself that I could have gone, and I didn't. I don't know why. But to be in that building for some of those moments, especially the Sandman moment at the end, I still regret that I didn't go to that show.
Yeah. That show, I would have gone, but, without getting into, because we were short on time, I originally was going to do the bus trip for Hardcore Homecoming. And I had a falling out with Mike Johnson and PW Insider, so I pulled my bus trips. So as a result, instead of going to Hardcore Homecoming, I was going to go to ECW One Night Stand. And at the last minute, I just got lazy. And I said, I'll just cover the show on my hotline or podcast, whatever it was doing at the time. And I stood home. And I kicked myself in the ass because I think that recap is online. I think I posted it recently. And you have people calling in like, wow, you're so stupid. You should have went. It was unbelievable. I know today on social media, everything is unbelievable, amazing. It's the greatest night of my life. But back then, when people said it was unbelievable or amazing, it probably was.
Oh, yeah.
So, 3 more super chats and we're gone. Matthew Sheffel, do you think Tony Khan may partner with Ring of Honor for a possible AEW streaming service?
I don't know why he would. I mean, I could see him maybe having an interest in the tape library, but there's no indication that. I mean, Joe Koff, I think, said that it's not for sale. It's not something they're interested in parting ways with. I mean, what does AEW benefit from a streaming service with Ring of Honor? I don't see what the benefit is for Tony Khan.
I think if Tony Khan starts wanting to make compilations of like Bryan Danielson or others, if he wants to do a little bit of like a documentary type thing, maybe he wants to license a little bit of footage from Ring of Honor. I could see that.
Yeah, licensing is fine. I just don't see the need for a full-fledged streaming service when, give it a couple of years, AEW can probably just have their own. They don't have to partner with anybody else.
Yeah. Don Juan is asking if we read his super chat. Well, I'm going down the list, and I do not see one, to be honest with you. I do not see one. Unless you went under an alias. I am looking, I am checking it twice, and I am not being naughty or nice. No, there is one. Oh, maybe I did. Oh, actually, no, yeah, if this is Juan Ocampo. Oh, wait. Wait. How did I not see this? I didn't see this. I sound like Brian Last. Let me say this, and I say this with love. I have now become a big fan of Jim Cornette and Brian Last. I could not stand Jim Cornette for many years. Now I get it. But let's make something clear. And I say this with love. Brian Last sounds like me. I don't sound like Brian Last. Now, if you said to me, you sound like Paul Heyman, okay, that's fine. But, I've been doing this since 97. So Brian Last sounds like me. I think that sounds a little. Thank you for mentioning that, because this would have sucked if we did this show and I didn't get to mention it. I have nothing but love for Brian Last. So thank you again. See, now I'm getting creeped out because Professor John Gotti keeps popping up. So he's making offers that I can't refuse. What is one wrestling? Okay, we answered that. We answered Tony Khan. Nero Faye, peace, not just for the Middle East, prayers for Ukraine. Absolutely, man. Something, what I'm hoping for very quickly? I'm hoping for that video that shows up on Twitter where soldiers from Russia that are in Ukraine, and they meet up with soldiers from Ukraine. I know this sounds like a bad Star Trek episode from 1967, but I want to see a clip where soldiers in Ukraine capture soldiers from Russia and they drop their guns and they have a couple of brewskis and they say, this is not right. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but I want to see that video. I want to see a YouTube video. I want to see a Twitter video. I want to see something where people that are fighting just drop their weapons and say, the fuck are we doing this for? And maybe that will spark others to do the same. I look like the white version of Odyssey Jones.
Oh, my goodness.
Dream, you're a son of a bitch. Dream is good people, but
Odyssey
did I
Jones,
really gain that much weight? I mean, I gained 10 pounds in the last 3 weeks because I kept going off keto, but it's because I'm retaining water. Look, I drank this entire thing during the show, you know, and I'm still thirsty.
Well, I know what you're going to be doing as soon as we're done here.
Oh, yeah, I got to pee bad. So, but hey, honestly, you know, when we get this much love for everyone out there, we want to at least acknowledge, you know, as many as possible. So obviously we can't answer every single person, but we thank you. And hey, maybe there's a next time. Rojo Bear 24, do we see Shane Strickland as a future AEW champion? Because the rumors are that AEW has signed the former Isaiah Swerve Scott.
Yeah, and then I heard that he's going to be starting in March, and they see big things for him. They think he can apparently be a crossover star. He's very talented. I recognized that right away when I first saw him at Lucha Underground when he was doing the kill shot gimmick. So nobody is denying his talent. Do I see him as the AEW World Champion? I don't, but I could definitely see him as a TNT champion. It's just that, you know, when I map out the next 2 to 3 years of AEW, who do I see holding that championship? And they give people time with that title. They're not playing hot potato with it. You know, Hangman has it now. I think MJF should have it at some point. I think one or the other. I don't think both Punk and Danielson will have it, but I do think one of them will likely end up with
I think Danielson's got to get it.
Yeah, maybe him more so than Punk, although neither of them need it. And then there's other names as well, you know, some of the young pillars of the company, someone like a Darby, I think could be champion. Look, I know he's doing tag stuff now. Malachi Black, I really hope that they, you know, stay the course with him as a single, because I think he could absolutely be a world champion for them at one point. Where does Shane Strickland fit into that? Not any time in the near future. But TNT champion, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I see TNT champion, definitely. And King Blingblood, yes, the truce of 1914. If anybody goes back in history, you know, when I said earlier about dropping guns and having beers, that's not an original thought. That has happened in history. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often. So, but with that said, we have gone about 2 hours and 20 minutes, about an hour more than what we expected, but we had so many of you, you know, just sending in comments and super chats and great questions. And we wanted to make this really, I mean, this was very special. I mean, you know, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and it was a running, you know, look, I'm 5 episodes away. If you include Hotline Reports, I'm 5 episodes away from 5,000. And over those years, never was interested in having guests, collabs, anything. I always felt people are tuning in because they want to hear me, they want to hear Kevin, they want to hear whoever, and you know we can't break that. And so many of you have been pushing this, and it's the right time. And you know, this was something that I always look. I'll leave everybody with this, and I wanted to say this to Solomonster also. I know everybody always remembers the night of WrestleMania where we did an episode, a recap. It was Wrestling Soup, myself, Kevin Castle, and Jason. And during that show, there were points where I was very silent. And a lot of people took it that I was very unsociable, that I didn't interact with Solomonster at all. And a lot of people stuck to that for years and years and years. I've never talked about it. I've never said anything about it. The truth is, and this is 1,000% sincere. That night, it happens in sports. It happens in any competition. It happens, you know, in performing on stage. Sometimes you just don't have it. You don't have that train of thought. You can't put things together. And some of the conversations that were going on that night was so good and so smooth and so well. I couldn't find my spot to really get in there. And I know people are used to me over talking people and interrupting people. But that night, I swear on my mother and I swear on my father and I swear on everybody. I swear on my reputation. There was no anger, animosity, jealousy towards Solomonster at all. They were having such great conversations, and I just found myself listening more than talking. That's all it was. So believe me, I know this has been years in the making, but it is not because of animosity. It's not because of, anything other than, my thinking that, hey, I just prefer to do my own thing. So maybe I was just subconsciously nervous that if I have a guest on, that I might start turning into mumbled mouth and the show would suck. I don't know. I think we had a great show tonight. I thank you very much for coming on. This was awesome. And I know you have a very busy schedule. And when is the next House of Glory show coming?
So the next show is coming up on Friday night, the 11th. There's 2 matches announced so far. We actually just crowned a new women's champion. We had a tournament last month, and we have Natalia Markova, who I honestly, and JD was the same way, we were not really familiar with her all that much beforehand, so we had to do our homework on her, and I was watching some of her work. And then watching her in the building that night, she was very impressive, and she happened to walk out with the belt. So she's coming back to defend her championship against Taya Valkyrie. We're going to have Taya in for the first time, so that should be great. And the main event is Low Ki against Jonathan Gresham.
Wow.
The Ring of Honor World Champion. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And again, the card, there'll be more to come. I know there's a lot of exciting things planned. I won't say more than that, but there's a lot of exciting stuff planned in the months ahead. So
and let me just
go ahead.
Yeah, let me just let everybody know. A lot of people may not know. Jason and JD do the play-by-play. Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we've been doing it. He's been doing it a little bit longer than me, but the first match I had a chance to call was in 2018. So, obviously the pandemic, a whole year went by where we didn't have any shows, but it's 4 years later. And it's good to be back at it because it was far too long. I mean, we didn't know what was going to be for the longest time, and you just want to get back out there. It's like you kind of you form this chemistry. You feel like you're on a roll, and then some silly thing like a pandemic happens. I mean, who could have predicted that? Yeah. And then there's nothing for a year. So we had our first show back in November. It's been great. We brought in some big names, but there's a lot of homegrown talent as well, and things are going well. So, cool. Come on down. That's
always a good thing.
Yeah.
Jason, have a nice weekend. All the best to you. Stay safe, and we'll talk again.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for inviting me here through the forbidden door. Into your, are you as sick as I am, by the way, of hearing that term at this point, forbidden door?
What I said last week is Tony Khan has to forget about the forbidden door and start worrying about a revolving door. Because if Cody could get up and leave, WWE has been streamlining their roster, and it seems like, they rather have 30 All-Stars than have, 20 All-Stars and 40 subpar people. The amount of money they're making, it's like a guy that goes to Vegas for the first time and he saved up all his money and he starts, hey, let me buy this. So this is $30 when it really should only be 10. Yeah, just give it to me. I could see WWE overpaying people in AEW just because they want them that bad. And especially with Tony Khan, with those contracts, the way they are, how loose that they are, that, this wrestler doesn't make that much in AEW, but they twitch, they cameo, they do this to that. And then when their contract is up and WWE says, look, how much you make for all of these things? Oh, yeah, this is how much? Okay, we'll double it. And then you go back to Tony Khan and you say, hey, just match it. Just come close to it. And then Tony Khan can't because he depends that you want to make money working here, working this show, working House of Glory, working Cameo, working GCW, working here. And now WWE says, okay, all that money, yeah, we'll just double it. And then you come. So I think Tony Khan has got to worry about a revolving door because some of these contracts start coming up. And if WWE starts overpaying some of these guys, I don't know if how he's going to be able to handle that, because they're not exclusive deals. So I think he needs to start worrying about a revolving door.
I think so, but it's just this expression has just been so beaten into the ground, and it's just like I think we can close the door for a little while.
COVID was the forbidden door. If COVID didn't hit, none of this would have happened. Very few.
Yeah, things would be very different.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for
Much
opening
love.
the door for me tonight, and all the best, DT.
You too. Be well.
You too.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. A lot of fun. A little nervous. We're amongst royalty in a lot of people's eyes. He's very good people. And I know a lot of you enjoy his shows, and some of you out there that, may not have been familiar with my shows before, and some of you out there who may have, but maybe haven't heard of my work in a long time. So, the idea tonight was just to get together, have some fun conversation, mingle with all of you, and give
I'm
you
going to hang
some...
out here. I'm going to hang out here and listen to you actually just kind of sing the show out.
No, I'm just saying, sincerely.
I don't want to duck out on you and give you a black screen. I'm going to hang out here until.
All right, so then you know what? In that case, ciao, everybody.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those...
Much love, Jason.
Awesome. Thank
all
you,
the
sir.
best.
Good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.